Chapter 22:30. How could she do that? Li Jianrui's face was full of anger. She's too disrespectful. It's already too much to enter your room without your permission. She even went through your drawer and through your things. She's so uncultured. Quan Jingyi smiled bitterly. I said the same thing. Li Jianrui's voice faltered. And then? Then I argued with her a little, Quan Jingyi said nonchalantly. He smiled. Then she threw all the paintings I secretly drew in front of my dad. Li Jianrui was furious when she heard that. How could she do that? You're such a bad stepmother. Quan Jingyi looked at her pouting and angry face. He actually thought that she was a little cute. He couldn't help but laugh out loud. Why are you so angry? It's not like you treated her like that. Of course I'm angry. I always knew that stepmothers were bad, but I didn't expect them to go so far. Humph. All right, go back to the classroom. Quan Jingyi turned around and was about to go down the corridor. He quickly went down the stairs with his back facing Li Jianrui. Where are you going? Li Jianrui followed and couldn't help but say, I'm still in class. It's the homeroom teacher's class later. I'm going for a walk. I'll go with you. Li Jianrui was by his side. She quickly went around to him. You haven't told me why your father doesn't let you learn how to draw. Isn't your father the mayor? My father said that the higher a person's social status is, the more importance they attach to the harmony of their family and the education of their descendants. Why doesn't your father attach importance to the harmony of your family? He doesn't even allow you to paint. Even the teacher praised you for your talent. If you continue to paint, you might even become an artist. Quan Jingyi was speechless. That's right. Li Jianrui's petite body, coupled with her appearance that was even more childish than her peers, made her look especially childish in front of him. She looked especially like a child. Quan Jingyi's heartbeat inexplicably sped up at this moment. Looking at her as happy as a bird, he tilted his head slightly. His ears unconsciously felt a little hot, but he maintained the same expression on his face and said, My mother is a painter. Wow, no wonder you are so talented. My mom can play the piano very well. She also knows how to cook and knows many languages. She often travels with my dad. So my brother is also very good. He knows everything my mom knows, and he knows everything my dad knows. There's also my brother. Although he looks chubby, he is very smart. My grandpa said that he will become an excellent scout in the future, the kind with sharp ears and eyes. These are all inherited. Your mother must be very talented, and she must be very good-looking. Li Jianrui smiled and tilted her head to look at him as she walked backward. Quan Jingyi listened to her words and chuckled. Why do you say that? You are very good-looking. I saw your father last time. He wasn't as good-looking as you, so you must have inherited it from your mother. Quan Jingyi nodded with a smile. Indeed, my mother is very beautiful and very gentle, but she is very rebellious and very bold. Do you know how she died? Li Jianrui's eyes widened. She didn't expect him to be willing to talk about this. She immediately shook her head and waited for Quan Jingyi's answer. Quan Jingyi looked into the distance. The wind blew and swept the ends of his hair on his forehead, making his facial features look a little lonely. When I was 3 years old, she went outdoors to sketch and there was an earthquake. Chapter 22:31. Ah, an earthquake. Li Jianrui was a little scared. People always instinctively felt awe for natural disasters that couldn't be avoided or predicted. Yes. Quan Jingyi looked into the distance and narrowed his eyes slightly. My memory of her is only the photos I saw when I was young. She was very beautiful and very gentle. However, he never saw her again. All his memories of his mother were left with his father's blame, his stepmother's slander, and his grandmother's regret and heartache. He didn't know who was telling the truth and who was lying. But in the depths of his heart, he thought more than once that his mother must be a gentle, kind, and beautiful woman. Quan Jingyi's thoughts gradually drifted away. At this moment, it seemed that he was surrounded by his world. Just as Quan Jingyi was distracted, he suddenly felt a slight warmth on his body. Quan Jingyi was stunned. He looked down and saw a black head at a glance. His heart was beating fast. At this moment, an indescribable throbbing made it difficult for him to remain calm. Subconsciously, Quan Jingyi wanted to reach out and hug her in his arms. However, this impulse was quickly suppressed by his rationality. Li Jianhua didn't think much about it. She just suddenly felt a little sad. She felt that Quan Jingyi, who lacked maternal love, was actually very fragile. She gave him a gentle hug and said softly, "Your mother must be a very good person. Don't be sad. She will watch you quietly from heaven and wait for you to grow up." Quan Jingyi suppressed the throbbing and ripples in his heart and smiled. "You still believe this?" Li Jianhua heard his smiling voice and felt that she was being mocked. She raised her face and let go of him. She said angrily, "Why not? What everyone is saying must be true. When I was young, great-grandfather doted on me. Later, he passed away. I was very sad. My mother said that great-grandfather didn't leave us. He just went to another place to watch us." Li Jianhua said very seriously. Her pink face was full of sincerity. Quan Jingyi smiled slightly. "Yes." When the bell rang, Li Jianhua immediately smiled. "Let's go. Class is starting." "It's too late," Quan Jingyi said. "It takes 5 minutes to get to the classroom from here." What should we do then?" Li Jianhua's face fell. She was a little anxious. This is the class teacher's class. If we're late, we'll be scolded. What else can we do? Quan Jingyi held her hand. "Run." Before Li Jianhua could react, she was dragged away. She was so shocked that she staggered and shouted, "Hey!" The two of them ran all the way. Li Jianhua's long hair was blown by the wind. Under the sun, it was as if a black wave had been splashed. It was eye-catching. Lu Yuanyang was twirling a basketball in his sportswear at the entrance to the top class of senior year on the 3rd floor. He saw 2 people running down the stairs and thought they looked familiar. "Hey, Mosen, isn't that your little princess?" Li Mosen was stretching his muscles and bones. He walked over and looked down. At a glance, he saw the figure that went deep into his bones. Li Mosen frowned and subconsciously looked at the boy's appearance. From the side of his face, it could be seen that this boy was very good-looking and tall. He was Ursu's desk mate, Quan Jingyi. Lu Yuanyang whistled and said, "Are they dating?" "They look like they're a good match, but, shut up." A low shout made Lu Yuanyang's heart skip a beat. He looked sideways and saw that Li Mosen's face had darkened. Chapter 2232. Li Mosen's footsteps were very fast. Before Zhang Yi and Lu Yuanyang could catch up, he was already downstairs. Li Mosen stopped abruptly when he saw the boy and girl sprinting in front of him. They were running in the direction of the Year 1 building. And Quan Jingyi and Li Jianhua were classmates. They were just going to class. What was he thinking? With Li Jianhua's brain, she would never date in the first year of high school. What was he worried about? Li Mosen watched their backs disappear at the end of the building. His heart finally calmed down. But his heart was still in turmoil. He was impulsive. Just now, Li Mosen realized that he couldn't calm down at all. Zhang Yi and Lu Yuanyang finally caught up. Looking at Li Mosen's back, they heaved a sigh of relief. Lu Yuanyang said, "You scared me to death. I thought you were going to beat up that kid." Zhang Yi patted his chest, still in shock. "I thought so too. Fortunately, it's not. But the little princess is all grown up now. She's in the first year of high school. It's normal for her to date. You shouldn't interfere too much." Lu Yuanyang nodded in agreement. "Especially since the little princess is so pretty. There will only be more and more suitors. You can control one, but you can't control 2 or 3. It's better to let her be. Anyway, it's high school. Dating is just for fun. Before he finished speaking, Zhang Yi suddenly touched Lu Yuanyang. Lu Yuanyang was a little angry because of the force. But when he turned his head, he saw Zhang Yi giving him a look. Following Zhang Yi's gaze, Lu Yuanyang saw the dark look on Li Mosen's face. Li Mosen had a mixed-race face, snow-white skin, delicate and clean, blue eyes, and long eyelashes. But at this moment, there was only monstrous anger in his eyes. Lu Yuanyang was so scared that he didn't dare to make a sound. Li Mosen didn't say anything. He didn't even look at them. He just walked away. Zhang Yi and Lu Yuanyang followed behind him. They looked at each other, still in shock. Lu Yuanyang mouthed, "What's wrong?" Zhang Yi thought for a moment and guessed, maybe he's angry because his sister is in a relationship and he doesn't have a girlfriend? Lu Yuanyang was amused. However, he knew that things were not as simple as they seemed. The two of them pondered for a moment before deciding to follow. It was a physical education class. As the physical education representative, Li Mosen was usually very prestigious in the class. At this time, when he gave orders, he was also merciless. After 10 laps of the track, everyone was exhausted. However, traditional medicine doctor and Lu Yuanyang had to play basketball with them. In the end, they were so exhausted that they didn't even look human. Finally, when school was over, Li Mosen was the first to leave. Both Zhonghua and Lu Yuanyang realized that Li Mosen's destination was clear. He was heading to year 1. On Li Jianyue's side, she had never tried to go to class on time. When she arrived at the classroom, the teacher was already in the classroom. When she saw Quan Jingyi and Li Jianyue running in together, she looked at them critically. Finally, her gaze fell on their hands. Li Jianyue then realized that her hand was still being held by Quan Jingyi. Li Jianyue was so frightened that she quickly flung his hand away and ran to her seat. Sun Xiaoyu's gaze was very strange. He looked at Quan Jingyi and then at Li Jianyue with disdain. Chapter 22:33. Li Jianyue noticed Yang Ziheo's gaze and couldn't help but feel a little strange. She was a little angry but also a little baffled. She had never offended him. She had only rejected his confession. Was he going to be like this? Li Jianyue thought about it and felt that it was a little unreasonable. So, when she passed by him, she couldn't help but glare at him before stomping in. Sun Xiaoyu, change seats with Wang Caijie, the teacher said. After changing seats, class will begin. Wang Caijie was a little surprised and asked the teacher, "Why? Don't you know that Sun Xiaoyu and Li Jianyue just quarreled?" Since Sun Xiaoyu can't get along with female students, then sit with male students and change seats. Wang Caijie was a little unwilling, but she looked at the teacher and took out her bag. She moved her books to Li Jianyue's seat. Sun Xiaoyu was also moving things. As he moved things, he muttered, "Why don't you say that it's Li Jianyue's problem? It's obvious that Li Jianyue doesn't welcome me and has been bullying me. The teacher is just biased." His voice wasn't soft, so Li Jianyue also heard it. She said angrily, "It's obviously you who bullied me. How dare you say that? How did I bully you? It's obviously you. You wanted to sit with Quan Jingyi, so you found an excuse. Now you're not sitting with Quan Jingyi. You're also very disappointed, aren't you?" Sun Xiaoyu's voice was slightly harsh. Li Jianyue glared at him angrily, but her long years of upbringing prevented her from saying anything particularly harsh. "All right, be quiet." The teacher patted the podium. "It's time for class. If you continue to quarrel, do the questions." Only then did Sun Xiaoyu quiet down and move the table reluctantly. Under Yang Ziheo's thick glasses, a pair of small eyes looked at Quan Jingyi. As for Quan Jingyi, he was still sitting in his original seat. At this moment, when he returned to his seat, he lazily leaned on the table, looking half dead as usual. Sensing Yang Ziheo's gaze, Quan Jingyi raised his eyebrows slightly. His lazy gaze drifted over with a hint of provocation. It looked a little, annoying. Yang Zihao was angry when he saw him. He turned his head and ignored him. Soon, it was the end of class. When school was over, Li Jianrui was still packing her things. She heard Wang Caijie's voice. Senior Mosen? The first person Li Jianrui thought of was her brother. She looked sideways and sure enough, she saw the exquisite mixed-race face at a glance. However, Li Mosen did not look very happy at this time. His face was gloomy and very ugly. When he walked into the classroom, the strong aura around him, which had been influenced by Li Xiqing for many years, seemed out of place in this classroom. But it was also this kind of aura that made the hearts of the surrounding female students palpitate uncontrollably. Looking at Li Mosen's tall and strong figure, their faces and ears flushed red, unable to control themselves. Li Jianrui looked at her brother in front of her. She was already used to this. She blinked her eyes and asked, "What's wrong? Are you unhappy today?" Hearing her sweet voice, Li Mosen pursed his rosy lips into a thin line again and replied, "Yes, I'm not happy." Li Jianrui finally finished packing her school bag. Just as she was about to put it on her back, Li Mosen took it away. Li Jianrui looked at Li Mosen and asked, "Why?" Chapter 22:34. It was rare for Li Mosen to express his emotions so directly. Li Jianrui thought that something terrible must have happened for Brother Mosen to be in such a bad mood. After Li Mosen said that, he did not say another word. He carried Li Jianrui's school bag and walked forward without saying a word. The moment he walked out of the classroom, Li Jianrui heard cheers coming from the classroom behind her. "Ah, so handsome. Is that Li Jianrui's brother? Our school's hunk, the president of the student council, and a top student. He has won many awards for our school in the past few years. The principal has been praising him. I heard that the people from T University next door have come to poach him. The people from Tsinghua University also want to recommend him." Li Jianrui did not hear much, but the voices of these fangirls were too loud. She could not pretend not to hear them. She caught up with Li Mosen in a few steps and shouted, "Brother." Li Mosen's lips pursed even deeper, and the displeasure on his face became even stronger. Li Jianrui shouted again, "Brother Mosen." Li Mosen finally turned to look at her and asked, "What is it? Why are you unhappy?" Li Jianrui felt a little puzzled. In her memory, Li Mosen did not seem to be so emotional. And Li Mosen did not want to explain. He took a step forward and said, "Let's go home first." "Oh." Li Jianrui quickly caught up with him like a little tail. Just like before. This understanding made Li Mosen feel a little more at ease. But the next moment, he saw Quan Jingyi. Quan Jingyi was wearing a school uniform. Compared to the other boys in year 1, Quan Jingyi's development was too good. He was tall and had long legs. The school uniform looked a little small on him. He looked a little sloppy, but he had a different kind of mischievous aura. The moment he saw Quan Jingyi, Li Mosen's mood, which had not been easy to calm down, instantly fell to the bottom of the abyss. Quan Jingyi raised his eyebrows slightly. Obviously, he did not understand why Li Mosen was so hostile to him. When Li Jianrui saw Quan Jingyi, she blinked her eyes. Before she could say anything, Li Mosen grabbed her arm tightly. Before Li Jianrui could react, she was pulled by the boy and her body fell forward. Li Mosen was tall and had long legs. His footsteps were big and he was strong. Ouch! Li Jianrui let out a cry as she was pulled along. Then, she could only run behind Li Mosen in small steps. "Brother Mosen, slow down." But Li Mosen didn't seem to hear it, and his footsteps became faster. Li Jianrui felt aggrieved. Li Mosen had always been very obedient to her. No matter what happened, he was always obedient to her. This was the first time he had dragged her along like this. Li Jianrui pouted. When she reached the end of the run, she panted and shouted, "Brother Mosen." Li Mosen stopped in his tracks. Li Jianrui was caught off guard. Her nose bumped into his back. It was so painful that tears came out of her eyes. It was too fucking hard. Li Jianyu rubbed her little nose. Her face was full of grievance and she almost cried. Tears welled up in her eyes. Chapter 22:35. Li Jianyu was stunned by the question. Huh? Li Mosen looked at her with a sullen expression. But when he saw the cute expression on her fair and tender face, his mood eased a little. He asked, "Is that so?" Li Jianyu immediately shook her head. She shook her head like a drum and shouted, "Of course not. How can I fall in love? Daddy and Mommy said that I can't fall in love at such a young age." Yeah. Li Mosen's mood finally improved a lot. There was a look of relief on his face. He reached out and patted her little head. That's good. You're still young. You can't be led astray by these people, okay? When Li Jianyu heard this, she pouted and muttered, "How can it be so easy to be led astray? And if it's really puppy love, it's not considered being led astray. Isn't this considered being led astray?" Li Mosen raised his eyebrows slightly and said with a straight face, "At your age, you don't know anything. If you really fall in love, it's very easy to be deceived. I'm also doing this for your own good." "Humph, come on, for my own good," Li Jianyu muttered. "Aren't you afraid that my falling in love will affect my studies?" "Humph, don't worry, I won't fall in love at such a young age. I must do well in my exams. You and my brother are both top students. I can't be a bad student. It's good to have this awareness." Li Mosen touched her head. His voice couldn't help but soften. Now, you should focus on your studies. Therefore, she couldn't fall in love at such a young age. He wouldn't allow it. Li Jianyu walked away angrily. As she walked, she rubbed her little nose. Li Mosen looked at her cute little face and smiled. His hand couldn't help but touch his heart. His heart, which had been restless for a whole day, returned to normal in an instant. But, Li Mosen's eyes narrowed. The sloppy look of Quan Jingyi just now appeared in front of him. He had to admit that Quan Jingyi was indeed good-looking. Not only his appearance, but his height, physique, figure, and even his athletic talent were outstanding. Such a person was Ursu's classmate. The two of them were so close. This was really worrying. But very quickly, Li Mosen suppressed the emotions in his heart and followed Li Jianyu. Li Jianyu and Li Mosen had always shared a bicycle. The back seat of this bicycle was very soft and comfortable. Moreover, the feeling of being in contact with nature and the wind made Li Jianyu very happy. Until now, she was not willing to change. But today, the back seat of the bicycle was cut into pieces by someone with a scissors or something like a blade. When Li Jianyu saw it, her eyes widened in disbelief. She quickly ran up and shouted, "Who did it?" Li Mosen also walked up. When he saw this scene, his teeth suddenly clenched. When Li Jianyu saw the sponge that was exposed inside, her heart ached so much that her eyes turned red. She stomped her feet angrily and said, "Who's so evil to cut off my throne?" Li Mosen frowned and looked at other places. He found that the other places were safe and sound. Even the tires and leather seat of the bike were in good condition. Only the back seat was damaged beyond recognition. Li Jianyu was on the verge of tears. She shouted, "You're definitely targeting me. You just don't want me to sit in your car." Chapter 22:36. Li Jianyu had always known that her brother was very popular with girls, but it didn't mean that she could accept such damage. She liked this throne very much. The more Li Jianyu thought about it, the more aggrieved she felt. She pouted and her eyes turned red. She choked and shouted, "What should we do now?" Li Mosen's face darkened. He walked to Li Jianyu's side and gently put his arm around her shoulder. He said, "The school has surveillance cameras. We can see who did it." Li Jianyu sniffed. "But how are we going to go back today? It's so damaged that we can't even sit on it." Li Mosen pursed his lips and said, "Let's walk back." "No," Li Jianyu pouted. It'll take half an hour to walk home. Mom and Dad are still waiting for us to come home for dinner. Su Qianxi and Li Xiqing didn't spend much time at home. They were either on business trips or traveling. The couple was very carefree and happy. It wasn't easy for them to be at home, but they still couldn't get home in time. Li Jianyue's heart was about to die. Let uncle pick us up. There's no hurry. Li Mosen patted Li Jianyue's shoulder gently. I'll make a call and take the opportunity to see who's behind it. Li Jianyue's face was full of reluctance, but this was the only way now. Just as they were about to walk to the security booth, a bicycle came toward them from not far away. Li Jianyue looked at the person and blinked. Quan Jingyi was wearing a school uniform that didn't fit him very well, but his youthful aura was still very strong. He looked at Li Jianyue and raised his thick eyebrows slightly. He looked at the back seat that had been destroyed beyond recognition and asked, "Do you want me to send you back?" Li Jianyue was a little surprised. This guy was actually so kind. It was really surprising. Li Jianyue looked at the back seat of his bicycle and found that it was also very comfortable and soft. For a moment, she couldn't help but feel a little tempted. Looking at the back seat, she blinked and asked, "Your house doesn't live with mine?" "It's on the way," Quan Jingyi said lightly. "No need." Li Mosen walked over with cold eyes and said calmly, "Thank you, classmate Quan, but I've already called our driver. He'll come to pick us up soon." "Oh," Quan Jingyi shrugged, looking indifferent. "Forget it then." Li Jianyue felt a little pity. Actually, she didn't want to take a car. Bicycles were the most comfortable. On the way back, they could watch the sunset and enjoy the breeze. It was very comfortable. However, she couldn't trouble Quan Jingyi to send her back. She had no choice but to follow Li Mosen's words and said, "Our driver will be here soon. You should go back quickly." Quan Jingyi smiled faintly and said, "Remember to remove me from your phone's blacklist. I'll send you the portrait today." "Portraits?" Li Jianyue's eyes lit up. "The portrait? Is it the one you drew of me sitting on the Ferris wheel?" "Yes." Li Mosen's gaze was slightly sinister as he coldly glanced at Quan Jingyi. Quan Jingyi acted as if he didn't see it and said, "Yes, there are a few more. If you want them, I'll send them to you together." Li Mosen's tone was unfriendly as he asked, "Why did you draw her?" Quan Jingyi was unexpectedly calm. He said calmly, "She's pretty. She looks beautiful when you draw her." Chapter 22:37. Why don't you pull me out of the blacklist? Quan Jingyi looked down at her. In front of him was her dark little head, which carried a faint fragrance. It smelled good, and he was in a good mood. "I can't send it out now, and you can't receive my message." "Eh?" Li Jianyue was a little surprised. "Have we already added each other on WeChat? Why didn't I know?" Quan Jingyi glanced at Li Mosen's increasingly ugly expression. He pretended not to see it and said, "We added each other last time. I added it from Yang Ziheo's phone." Li Jianyue suddenly understood. "So that's how it is. I thought it was Yang Ziheo's friend because the last time Yang Ziheo gave me a love letter, he said it was from his friend. Later, I found out that the love letter was from him. Humph, his WeChat is also his own." As she spoke, Li Jianyue had already taken out her phone and asked, "Which one is it?" Li Mosen didn't say anything. He looked down at their interaction. He clenched his fist slightly and then loosened it again. He said calmly, "The purpose of you coming here is to get Ursu to pull you out of the blacklist?" Quan Jingyi was also a man. Naturally, he could easily sense the unhappiness in Li Mosen's words. For some reason, Quan Jingyi was in a good mood. He said, "No." Meeting Li Mosen's cold and gloomy eyes, Quan Jingyi smiled carelessly and said, "I saw you standing here and thought you might need help. As for the portraits and blacklisting, it's just a matter of convenience. Your car was clearly there. How did you know that our car was damaged?" Li Mosen's voice was slightly low. He looked at him and said in a low voice, "Do you know who did it?" Li Jianyue, who was playing with her phone, also looked up. Li Jianrui's face was full of anger. She shouted, "Yes, who? Do you know who it is? It's too hateful. It must be a girl." "No," Quan Jingyi said calmly. "Then it's a boy?" Li Mosen looked at Quan Jingyi with his blue eyes narrowed. There was a bit of malice in his words. He said with some speculation, "Could it be you?" Li Jianrui's eyes widened. "No way." Speaking of this, Li Jianrui immediately remembered some bad rumors about Quan Jingyi. Bad boy, hooligan, delinquent, gangster, with all these labels attached together, it seemed normal to do such a thing. Li Jianrui suddenly felt a little scared and angry at the same time. "Why did you do this?" Quan Jingyi looked at the angry expression on her delicate face and didn't know whether to laugh or cry. He said, "I wouldn't do something so senseless." "Is that so?" Li Mosen's voice was indifferent. "Since you saw who did it just now, why didn't you stop him?" "I didn't see it." Quan Jingyi squinted at him. "I'm just guessing." "I believe you've already seen it." Li Jianrui looked at him. Chapter 2238. Sun Xiaoyu. Indeed, Sun Xiaoyu was indeed the person who had the most motive to do such a thing. After hearing Quan Jingyi's words, even her thoughts became very clear. Li Jianrui said angrily, "This Sun Xiaoyu is too bad." "Why did he do that?" "Because he hates you," Quan Jingyi said with a faint smile. "After all, you just embarrassed him in public." "But it wasn't me." Li Jianrui was furious. "It was you who deliberately stretched out your leg when he walked over and pretended to be innocent. You're the worst." "I didn't." Quan Jingyi's voice was faint with a hint of a lazy smile. "I really didn't do it on purpose. The table was too small and couldn't fit my legs. What else could I do?" Hearing this, Li Jianrui subconsciously looked at Quan Jingyi's legs. Indeed, it looked a little long. As the tallest person in the class, Quan Jingyi could indeed say such words. Quan Jingyi felt her gaze and naturally withdrew his legs. "Stop looking. It's longer than you can imagine." "What?" Li Jianrui muttered. But she felt a little happy in her heart. It turned out that Quan Jingyi was also someone who could say such words. She really didn't notice it usually. It seemed that after today's events, the distance between them had unknowingly narrowed a lot. And when Mosen saw the faint smile on Li Jianrui's lips, he became more and more annoyed. "It's time to go home," Li Mosen's voice was faint. "Let's go." Li Jianrui pouted. "The car broke down. It'll be fine tomorrow. Uncle Yang will be here soon." Li Mosen looked not far away. Coincidentally, a low-profile black business car was driving in their direction. "If you don't want to take the car, I can give you a ride," Quan Jingyi said. The young man's voice was exceptionally clear. "Anyway, it's on the way." Li Jianrui really didn't want to take the car. When she heard Quan Jingyi's words, she thought about where Quan Jingyi's home was. But the next moment, she heard Li Mosen's voice. "No, it's too troublesome. Thank you for your kindness." Li Jianrui also felt that it was a little troublesome. Although she still wanted to agree, she felt that it was not a good idea. After all, although they had known each other for a while, they were not very familiar with each other. She could only echo Li Mosen's words and said, "Thank you, but forget it. We can go back by ourselves." As soon as he finished speaking, the family car arrived. Li Mosen opened the car door for Li Jianrui in a gentlemanly manner, revealing the retro and comfortable high-class interior. This was the car Grandma had prepared for them to send them to school. But who knew that none of the children in the family were willing to take a car? They rode their bicycles and left. Li Maoyun was even more exaggerated. He took out a small electric scooter from nowhere and sped to school every day. He was happy and happy. When Li Jianrui saw the comforting middle-aged and elderly people inside, she didn't want to go in. She pouted and waved goodbye to Quan Jingyi before getting into her own car. Quan Jingyi watched as Li Jianyue got into the car. The next moment, he met Li Mosen's dark gaze. Chapter 2239. It was obvious. Li Mosen was very hostile to him. Quan Jingyi looked at him with interest. He raised his eyebrows slightly and raised his chin. Aren't you going to get in the car? Li Jianyue, who was in the car, also heard this. She looked at Li Mosen and patted the seat beside her. Brother Mosen, get in the car. Only then did Li Mosen retract his gaze. The cold warning aura on his body disappeared without a trace the moment he turned around. It was as if nothing had happened. Quan Jingyi watched the door close and the black car drive away. He began to have a terrible guess in his heart. When they met at the amusement park, Qin Shizhao had been thinking about Li Mosen for a long time, so she went to inquire about a lot of things early in the morning. Qin Shizhao was good at information channels. The information that she could say was usually true. Li Mosen was not the Li family's biological son. He had heard Qin Shizhao gossip before. And now, Li Mosen was obviously very hostile to him. And this hostility was not just because his sister was coveted and he wanted to protect her as an elder brother. But, as a man, it was the warning of a wolf when facing a rival in love. It had to be said that for a moment, Quan Jingyi was indeed attracted by Li Mosen. But he was not someone who would give up easily because of this. Quan Jingyi rode the bicycle and faced the evening wind. He was in a rare mood. It seemed that it had been a long time since he had been so challenging. If he really started dating Li Jianyue, what would Li Mosen's reaction be? He was looking forward to it. The car drove in the direction of Wuxia. It was not far and only took 10 minutes. However, Li Jianyue felt that this part of the road was a little troublesome. Looking at the comfortable middle-aged and elderly people around her, she felt uncomfortable. She fell onto Li Mosen's lap and said coquettishly, "When can our car be repaired?" Li Mosen looked at the girl on his lap with gentle eyes. He couldn't help but raise his hand and gently push the hair on her forehead away. He said gently, "Very soon. Let Uncle Yang repair it. It can be repaired today." Li Jianyue pouted and lowered her head to play with her fingers. She snorted and said, "What if it can't be repaired? Then let Uncle Yang buy us a new car." Li Mosen gently twirled his fingers around her soft hair and suddenly said, "How about a little electric donkey?" Li Jianyue's eyes lit up. "Can I? I want to ride on the electric scooter too. It's fast and saves energy." "Well, maybe we can also change to a motorcycle." Li Mosen looked at her face, which was similar to Su Qianxi's, and reached out to touch her eyelid. Li Jianyue blinked her eyes subconsciously. Her thick and long eyelashes brushed past his fingers, leaving a slight itch. Li Mosen's heart skipped a beat as he looked at her. His gaze moved from her eyes to her nose and finally to her lips. Plump and rosy, smooth and small, very beautiful. Li Jianyue blinked her eyes and looked at Li Mosen. "A motorcycle is fine too, but do you know how to drive one?" "Yes." "Let's change to a motorcycle then," Li Jianyue said as she lay on Li Mosen's lap and giggled. "A motorcycle is faster and very cool. Let's go home and ask Mom and Dad. If they agree, we'll change." When Li Jianyue heard this, her face suddenly fell. "You're so annoying. Mom and Dad will definitely say that it's dangerous." Chapter 2240. Li Jianyue's face was full of surprise. "Wow, that's great. Brother Mosen, you're so amazing." Li Mosen could clearly feel her admiration. The corners of his lips curled up. "Are you happy that I'm so amazing?" "Yes." Li Jianyue's eyes lit up. She looked at Li Mosen and said enviously, "If only I were half as smart as you and my brother." Li Mosen smiled. "You're already half as smart as I am. If you're not smart enough, let me make up for it with my intelligence." Li Jianyue was a little depressed. "But that's because you're smart, not because I'm smart. If I were as smart as you, I would definitely be better off than I am now. Look at Sister Pan Pan. She's so smart. Mom said that Sister Pan Pan inherited the intelligence of Uncle and Aunt Xingyu. That's why she's so outstanding. But I didn't inherit the intelligence of Mom and Dad. We're all born from the same parents. Why is my brother so smart? He thought that you and Daesu were twins and he sucked away all the nutrients in you, Li Mosen joked. When we get home, go beat him up. I'll help you beat him up until he's looking for his teeth all over the floor. Li Jianhua laughed out loud. Her eyes curved like crescent moons. She looked at Li Mosen and said, okay, then let's go back and do a mixed doubles later. Li Mosen smiled silently. He caressed her forehead and said, actually, you're very cute. Don't care what others say to you. Everyone has their own life. You're the little princess of our family. You don't have to be smart. You just have to be responsible for being cute and pretty. Li Jianhua felt happy when she heard that. She snorted lightly. That's right. I just have to be responsible for being cute and pretty. Yes, and then find a smart man to be your husband. Let him love and dote on you. Then you can live like this for the rest of your life, and live happily ever after. In fact, Mommy is a very smart and independent person. Brother Mosen, did you know? I heard from Aunt Xingyu that when Mommy and Daddy were still young, Daddy went missing for a few years. At that time, Mommy had just gotten pregnant, and Daddy disappeared. Mommy was the one who raised me and brother. At that time, she had to take care of a company by herself. At that time, the company was also very powerful. Mommy was really amazing. But after Daddy came back, Mommy didn't even have to wear her own clothes. Daddy was the one who dressed her. Li Jianhua's eyes were full of envy and longing. Ever since I was young, Dad rarely dressed me. She thought for a moment and said, but I'm fine. Dad doesn't even dress my older brother. Li Mosen felt a little sad when he heard this. Li Mosen had heard a lot about what Su Qianxi had experienced in the past. He knew that all these nightmares and tragedies originated from his biological mother. If it weren't for his biological mother, Li Xiqing wouldn't have gone missing. Su Qianxi wouldn't have had to bear so much on her own. Moreover, at that time, no matter how difficult and sad Su Qianxi was, she still went against everyone's opinion and adopted him. Now that he had grown up, he should repay this kind woman. Li Mosen caressed Li Jianhua's forehead and asked softly, you won't in the future. You will only enjoy all the happiness that your mother enjoyed. Chapter 22:41. Okay, I think so too. Mommy and Daddy both said that although I'm not as smart as you and Big Brother, my luck has always been the best since I was young. Ever since I was very young, I often won the lottery. Plus, I have the best daddy, the best mommy, the best grandpa, grandma, and Big Brother. As she spoke, her eyes turned into crescents. She looked up at Li Mosen and said, and you? Li Mosen's eyes turned into crescents. Li Mosen's heart suddenly felt as if it had been injected with a warm current. He couldn't help but smile and said, yeah. We're here. Uncle Yang stopped the car and pulled the handbrake. Li Jianhua immediately got up and hurriedly opened the car door and got out. When Li Mosen saw her jumping up and down with her school bag on her back, his heart that had been depressed for the whole day finally cleared up. Li Jianxian realized that Li Mosen seemed to be in a good mood that day. Even when he went out for a night run, he was smiling. Yu Chulin also noticed Li Mosen's strange behavior. He couldn't help but smile and say, hey, Mosen. Li Mosen turned around and looked at Yu Chulin. The faint smile on his face, as well as his obvious good mood, made Yu Chulin recall the hostility Li Mosen had shown him previously. His smile deepened as he asked, do you want to play basketball? Sure. Li Mosen raised his eyebrows. Daesu, come along too. Li Jianxian was panting slightly from running. When he saw the intense atmosphere between them, he nodded his head. When Li Jianhua heard that they were going to play basketball after taking a shower, she ran out happily and squatted at the side to watch them. Su Qianxi and Li Xiqing also came out for a walk. At a glance, they saw the huge basketball court under the night sky. The three youths were sweating profusely and full of youthfulness. The smile on Su Qianxi's face was still gentle. She held her husband's arm and said, "The children have all grown up." Li Xiqing only showed a gentle expression beside his wife. When he saw how happy Su Qianxi was, the corners of his lips curled up slightly and he said, "They've all grown up. We can rest assured in the future. When Daisa graduates, let's leave the company to him and travel around the world." Su Qianxi glanced at him, slightly dissatisfied, and said, "How old is Daisa now? Can't you let him play for another 2 years?" "How can that be? Children are meant to be used," Li Xiqing said seriously. "Other than Ersu and Moyun, everyone else can be used." Li Jianyue's ears were sharp. When she heard this, she immediately stood up from the ground and shouted, "Dad, how can you say that? I can use it too. Although I'm only in my first year of high school, I'll be interning in the company in my junior year." Although Li Ersu was not very smart, she had been the cutest since she was a child, and she looked the most similar to Su Qianxi. In addition to the debt he owed her when they were young, among the 3 children of Li Xiqing, he doted on her the most. Now that he heard his daughter being so sensible, he actually felt a little gratified and couldn't help but smile. "You've grown up." Li Jianyue took it as a compliment and replied proudly, "Of course." Su Qianxi couldn't help but laugh. "Speaking of which, Mosen is going to take the college entrance examination this year. Have you asked him which university he's going to?" Li Jianyue replied, "Yes, he said he wanted to get into Kingstown University." Kingstown University was also the best key university in Kingstown. However, this key university was only in Kingstown. Chapter 2242. Hearing her daughter's words, Su Qianxi was a little surprised. Although Kingstown University was not bad, Mosen was more interested in physics, and Kingstown University was more famous for its chemistry department. She once thought that even if Mosen did not want to go abroad, he would probably go to Tsinghua University, Capital University, Fudan University, or the University of Science and Technology. Ursa's answer was far beyond her expectations. Su Qianxi was a little puzzled and asked, "He told you that?" "Yeah." Li Jianyue did not think there was anything wrong with it. She tilted her head and said, "He said that this way, we don't have to live on campus, and he can send me to school on his bicycle every day." Hee hee. Seeing her daughter's silly look, Su Qianxi couldn't help but laugh. "So you asked your brother to stay?" "No." Li Jianyue squeezed between her parents and inserted her hands into Li Xiqing's and Su Qianxi's arms. She said coquettishly, "It's obvious that brother can't bear to leave me, okay? Where can he find such a cute and beautiful sister like me?" Su Qianxi laughed out loud. "Well, you've completely inherited your father's thick skin." Li Xiqing's eyes flashed for a moment, but when he heard his lover's words, he did not feel that he was being scolded. Instead, he said proudly, "That's good. This is the good quality of our Li family." Li Jianyue smiled and stayed in the middle of them. Looking at the 3 teenagers running on the basketball court, she shouted, "Go. Daddy and Mommy said they will take us for supper later." The 3 teenagers answered in unison, "Okay." Su Qianxi snorted and poked her daughter's nose. "Little rascal, what do you want to eat?" "Heidaleo." The basketball game ended quickly, and the 6 of them drove to the 24-hour Heidaleo hotpot restaurant. Before the dishes were served, Su Qianxi strictly controlled the quantity and warned them not to eat too much. But when the forecourt hotpot was served, she still couldn't control the teenagers' hands and accidentally exceeded their expectations. Seeing the dishes being served, Su Qianxi frowned and said, "Eat less, or you won't be able to sleep later." "It's okay, tomorrow is the weekend." Li Jianyue was very excited. As she spoke, she took out her phone and took a beautiful photo. Then she showed it to her brother, who was being strictly controlled by his grandparents in the old house. "Beautiful Buddhist girl, little son, picture, Fatty Li Moyun, Beautiful Buddhist girl, little son, seduce, fatty Li Moyun. Ah, how can you do this? I want to eat too. Beautiful Buddhist girl, little son, spinning. Come on, Li Moyun's stomach growled as he looked at the picture of the hot pot. Qin Shuhua happened to hear it and asked with concern, is Moyun hungry? Grandma will make supper for you, okay? The white-haired Li Xiao heard this and snorted. No, he's already so fat. We can't let him have supper. Li Moyun was on the verge of tears and said pitifully, Grandfather, I'm really hungry. Li Xiao said mercilessly, you have to endure it even if you are hungry. Look at your body. Then, she looked at Qin Shuhua and said, it's all your fault. Look at how handsome he used to be. He looked like his father and mother at the same time. You fed him until he was deformed. Chapter 22:43. Ding dong. Ding dong. Li Moyun lowered his head and a bunch of pictures popped up. Buddhist beauty, little son, voice, do you want to eat it? Come over. It's super delicious. There are 4 flavors. Tomato hot pot, 3 delicacies hot pot, butter hot pot, and seafood hot pot. The beef is so delicious. It's fragrant and tender. Other than Li Jianyue's voice, there were also the voices of his parents and the people around them. Gulp. Li Moyun swallowed his saliva. Qin Shuhua's heart ached for him. Eat a little. The child is used to it. If he doesn't eat, he'll be hungry at night. Li Moyun quickly nodded and looked at his grandfather pitifully. Li Xiao put on a straight face. Humph, look at you. Are you really that hungry? Li Moyun continued to nod and muttered bitterly, I'm hungry. Li Xiao shook his head and said to Qin Shuhua, give him a hardtack. No. Li Moyun screamed. Grandpa, I want to eat delicious food. Look at my sister. She's sending me delicious food. He pointed the phone at Li Xiao's face and shouted, look, she's too much. Is she still your biological sister? Right at that moment, Li Jianyue sent another video over. In the video, Yu Chulin, Li Mosen, Li Jianxian, and Su Qianxi were all there. In the middle of the video, there was a steaming hot pot. One look and you could tell that it was the ultimate luxurious dish. The last scene was Li Jianyue turning the camera to herself. She smacked her lips at the camera and smacked her lips. Li Xiao smiled and said, why is our Ursu so good-looking? Li Moyun was speechless. What kind of focus was that? Qin Shuhua also came over and watched the video again. She smiled and said, yes, Ursu is really good-looking. She's the prettiest among the 3 children. Li Xiao felt the same way and nodded. He looked at Li Moyun and was even more disappointed. Look at what you're feeding him. Is he a pig? Li Maju was speechless. Li Xiao finally announced his death sentence. Give him a hardtack and prepare vegetarian food for school on Monday. He's not allowed to eat meat for a month. Li Moyun cried sadly, Grandpa, why do you despise me so much? Am I an orphan? Grandma. I don't want to be a vegetarian. I don't want to eat hardtack. Qin Shuhua's heart ached for Li Moyun, but when she saw how fat Li Moyun was, she sighed and said, hey, listen to your grandfather. Be good. Li Moyun was in despair. Under Li Zhao's angry glare, he held a piece of hardtack and a glass of water and bitterly swallowed the food with tears in his eyes. He looked at the delicious food that Li Jianyue had sent on the screen with envy and jealousy. Qin Shuhua's heart ached, but when she saw the scene, she couldn't help but think it was funny. She took out her phone and secretly recorded a short video to post on WeChat. When Li Jianyue saw it, she laughed out loud and enthusiastically sent a video to Li Moyun. It was a live broadcast. Li Moyun cried out and roared with tears in his eyes, get lost. On the other hand, the room burst into laughter. Li Moyun decisively hung up the phone and cried in his bed. Li Jianyue's evil plan had succeeded. She naturally put her chopsticks into Li Mosen's dipping sauce and picked up a piece of meat that he had put down just a second ago. She happily put it into her mouth and smacked her lips. It's so delicious. Lazy bum, Li Mosen muttered. Chapter 22:44. Li Jianrui didn't think there was anything wrong with it. She happily picked up Li Mosen's food with her chopsticks. Suddenly, Li Mosen threw a piece of tripe into the bowl. Li Jianrui said, "Hey, I don't want to eat this." Li Mosen continued to heat the food. When he heard this, he deliberately said, "It's not for you." "Then don't put it here. It smells." "That's my bowl." Li Mosen deliberately glanced at her. "Your bowl is over there." "Oh, what's yours is mine." "Yours is mine." Li Jianrui smiled and added the tripe. She dipped it in the sauce and sent it to his mouth. Ah, Li Mosen smiled and opened his mouth. He ate the tripe and then put the freshly cooked food into the bowl. Li Jianrui's hands were nimble. She put the food in her mouth as fast as she could. Suddenly, she saw that the waiter had served her favorite shrimp paste. She immediately tugged at Li Mosen and mumbled, "Brother Mosen, I want to eat that." Li Jianxian couldn't stand it anymore. "You only care about yourself. Mosen hasn't eaten much. Didn't I just feed him a bite?" Li Jianrui said righteously. "I saw him eat a few bites." Su Qianxi also looked at her daughter. "Don't bully your brother." "No," Li Jianrui ate and picked up the meatballs in the bowl. "Brother Mosen likes to cook hot pot for me." He's not like that guy. He never cooks for me." "Fake brother." Li Jianxian laughed. "You have the nerve to say that. Isn't it because you like to stick to Mosen? Think about it. Have you ever cared about me? That's because you don't care about me. Only brother Mosen cares about me, so I don't care about you." Li Jianrui said angrily. "Brother Mosen is the best. You are all bad. Mom, you eat too." Li Jianrui scooped up a piece of freshly cooked shrimp paste and put it in Su Qianxi's bowl. "Brother Mosen is delicious." When Li Mosen heard this, his blue eyes quietly deepened. "Brother Mosen is delicious." "Hey, speak clearly. What do you mean Brother Mosen is delicious?" Li Jianxian took advantage of the loophole in her words. Li Jianxian then realized what she had said and said confidently, "Brother Mosen's cooking is delicious. If you can cook for me, I will also say that your cooking is delicious." "Forget it." Li Jianxian waved his hand. "Then, you continue to follow Mosen. Mosen, 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 don me." Humph. Li Jianrui continued to eat happily. Li Mosen was obviously in a good mood as well. He said, "At least leave a few mouthfuls for me." "Yeah, I'm full." Li Jianrui drank a cup of sour plum juice and was satisfied. "Ah, it's so delicious." Su Qianxi couldn't help smiling and said, "You only know how to bully your brother for being honest." Yu Chulin had been a man of few words from the beginning until the end. When he heard this, he subconsciously looked up at Li Mosen. Then, he looked at Li Xicheng, who had also been silent. At this time, Li Xicheng was eating with his eyes down, putting everything in the bowl between him and Su Qianxi. His eyes were dark. No one knew what he was thinking. After supper, Li Jianrui accidentally ate too much. She dragged Li Mosen's arm and walked with difficulty. Ah, it's so uncomfortable. Chapter 22:45. I don't want to go. I want to sleep. Li Jianrui cried and hugged Li Mosen's arm, looking aggrieved. Li Xicheng and Su Qianxi had already walked far away. Yu Chulin and Li Jianxian had always disliked them for being too slow, so they had long walked away. At this time, only Li Mosen and Li Jianrui were left behind. This was not the first time this scene had appeared, but every time, Li Mosen had a strange sense of happiness. Especially when the little girl acted coquettishly in front of him, the sense of satisfaction in his heart could not be replaced by anything. Under the streetlight, the little girl's fair and tender face was full of exhaustion. Li Mosen looked at her and then at the few people in front of him. He pursed his lips and said, "Do you want to become like Moyen?" Li Jianhua whimpered and hugged Li Mosen's arm. She finally resigned herself to her fate and stood up. However, she still half collapsed on him and stumbled as she said, "If I had known, I wouldn't have eaten so much. It's all your fault. You cooked the food so well and made the sauce so good. You caused me to accidentally eat too much." Ugh, Li Mosen didn't know whether to laugh or cry. "You're blaming me? It's your fault, it's your fault." Li Mosen was helpless. He looked down at her, his eyes full of love. "Then what about you? Next time, I'll have to work hard to keep an eye on you. I definitely can't let you eat too much." "Oh," Li Jianhua pursed her lips and said vaguely, "Up to you." He said the same last time. This time, he still cooked a lot for her to eat. Big liar. However, Li Jianhua felt that she was kind, so she definitely couldn't ruin his heroic words at this time. Otherwise, he wouldn't cook next time. Li Jianhua thought that she had calculated it well, but in fact, Li Mosen had long noticed that her eyes were rolling around. Li Mosen saw that the smile in his eyes deepened. It was actually quite good to continue like this. Finally, they got on the car and reached home. Li Jianhua was no longer that tired on the way back. Now, she went back to her room happily. Li Mosen was about to go upstairs when he suddenly heard Su Qianxi call out, "Mosen." Li Mosen stopped in his tracks and looked at Su Qianxi. He called out, "Mom." Su Qianxi stood at the door of the hallway and said, "Come to your father's study." Li Mosen felt inexplicably nervous. Ever since he was a kid, Li Xiqing had always been strict with him. This kind of strictness was different from the strictness he used on Li Jianxian and Li Jianhua. Although he would also be fierce and scold his children, and he would even hit them when they were disobedient to Li Jianxian. However, he had never concealed his love and tolerance for them. He would always be a little more patient with them. In the end, there was still a layer of separation between them. Li Mosen was well aware of this. Therefore, over the years, he had made his position very clear. He was not close to Li Xiqing, so Li Xiqing rarely asked him to go to his study. At this time, hearing Su Qianxi's words, Li Mosen's heart couldn't help but beat faster. Li Mosen nodded and followed Su Qianxi into Li Xiqing's study. Su Qianxi let him in and closed the door. Li Xiqing was sitting at the desk in the study, sorting out the paintings that Su Qianxi had drawn 2 days ago. Chapter 2246. Okay. Li Xiqing answered and carefully put the pile of paintings into the drawer. "Sit down. I want to talk to you." Li Mosen became even more nervous. Such a scene had happened before, but without exception, every time it happened, it felt different. This time, Li Xiqing seemed to be a little serious, making it impossible not to tense up and treat him seriously. Li Mosen sat down on the chair in front of Li Xiqing's table. His posture was standard and his back was straight. Li Xiqing knew that he had become used to it, so he didn't care and said, "I heard that you want to get into Kingstown University." Li Mosen had told Li Jianhua about this before, so he wasn't surprised that he knew. He nodded calmly and said, "Yes, Dad. I want to get into Kingstown University and stay in Kingstown. You should know that with your qualifications and talent, staying in Kingstown University is a bit of a waste." Li Xiqing looked at him with his sharp eyes. Li Mosen couldn't help but straighten his back and said, "I don't want to leave Kingstown." "Why?" "Because I grew up in Kingstown. I can't bear to leave." Li Xiqing listened to this and didn't say anything. Just then, Su Qianxi made a few cups of calming tea and brought them over. Inexplicably, she felt that the way this father and son interacted was a bit stiff. She quietly brought the tea over and sat next to Li Xiqing, waiting for them to continue the conversation. "Qianxian," Li Xiqing suddenly said, "help me close the door." Su Qianxi felt that something was wrong, but she still went to close the door. The moment the door was closed, she heard Li Xiqing's voice. Do you not want to leave Kingstown, or do you not want to leave Ursu? Li Mosen's heart suddenly felt like it was being fiercely grabbed by something. In just a moment, Li Mosen's back was already covered with a thin layer of sweat. And Su Qianxi was so smart that she immediately understood what he was implying. Her heart was beating fast, and she immediately turned around and looked at Li Xiqing in disbelief. At this moment, Li Xiqing's eyes were sharp as he stared at Li Mosen. The aura of being in a high position for many years was completely revealed at this moment. Even she herself could not quite withstand such coercion. What's more, Mosen was just a child. At this moment, Li Mosen was looking at Li Xiqing in shock. He quickly lowered his eyes to hide his panic and asked, Dad, is there anything different? Li Mosen lowered his blue eyes and clenched his fists. But he knew that he looked too guilty now. Under the pressure of Li Xiqing, the secret that she had kept in her heart for so many years had nowhere to hide. She frowned, walked over to him, and patted him on the shoulder. Li Xiqing then calmed down a bit. Li Mosen finally felt that he had some breathing space, but at this time, the palms of his hands and the back of his back were already oozing sweat, and even his forehead had completely exposed his nervousness. He knew that he was finished. Sure enough, he heard Li Xiqing say, You knew since you were young that you were not Ursu's biological brother, right? Mosen pursed his lips. Of course he knew. He had known since he was young. Everyone around him was reminding him that he was not Li Xiqing's biological child. He was just a product of a woman who had committed the most heinous crime and messed around in a foreign country. Chapter 2247. It was for the sake of living a good life in this family. He wanted to integrate into this family and become a real member of this family. He didn't dare to reveal his thoughts about Li Jianhua, for fear that Li Xiqing would drive him away and separate him from Ursu. Li Mosen had been safe and sound for so many years. He didn't expect to be discovered by Li Xiqing at this time. Li Mosen's heart was beating extremely fast. In his memory, he had only felt such fear when he was 5 or 6 years old, when he was held hostage by that crazy woman, Tang Menjing, and his life was hanging by a thread. At this time, such emotions once again shrouded his heart, making it difficult for him to adapt. Li Xiqing saw that he didn't speak, and already had an answer in his heart. He said meaningfully, Mosen. Li Mosen grabbed his thigh with both hands, and his heart was already clear. Li Xiqing knew. He knew everything. How could a smart person like Li Xiqing not be able to guess? Li Mosen's heart was filled with despair, but when he heard Li Xiqing's voice, he simply raised his head and said, Dad, I do know that I am not your biological child, so I don't want to leave Kingstown. I didn't ask you to leave, Li Xiqing interrupted him. I just think that you should have a more suitable choice. Go abroad, or go to a better university in the country. You can choose. Staying in Kingstown will only waste your talent. No, Mosen, Su Qianxi said in a gentle voice, listen to your father. Li Mosen was silent, but on his fair skin, his Adam's apple had already moved up and down a few times. Li Xiqing continued, You are too close to Ursu. Maybe even you don't know what your feelings for her are. I suggest you go abroad for a few years to calm down. Li Mosen panicked and said, No, Dad, I only have feelings for Ursu, like a brother and sister, you are not. Li Xiqing's eyes were like an eagle, firmly grasping him as if he could see through his internal organs. All his secrets had been seen through by him. She frowned and said, Ursu has been relying on Mosen since she was young, and Mosen is used to Ursu's pampering. Their relationship is indeed better, but they grew up together, so it's only right that they have a good relationship. What do you think? Yes, we should have a good relationship, but there's something wrong with the look in his eyes, Li Xiqing said with certainty. His voice gradually became stern. Mosen, Ursu only sees you as her brother. She's still very innocent now. She doesn't know anything, so she can't understand the emotions in your eyes. As he spoke, he stood up and quietly approached her. I'm a man. Of course I know what you mean when you look at her. That wasn't the way an older brother looked at his younger sister. Instead, it was the way a man would look at a woman he adored. He was an experienced person, so he naturally knew what was going on. Li Mosen was indeed outstanding, smart, well-behaved, hard-working, and eager to learn. But even so, she was not good enough for Li Xiqing's only daughter. Li Mosen panicked and sat on the chair as if his soul had been sucked out of him. After all, he was the child that he had raised. Seeing Li Mosen like this, Li Xiqing's eyes softened. He said meaningfully, "Mosen, you are still young and outstanding enough. Dad will recommend you to a professor at New York Business School. I'll give you a few years to calm down. Mosen is the older brother. Are you sure you want Mosen to be with Ursu? Are you sure?" Chapter 2248. New York Business School, I'll give you a few years. Calm down. Every word echoed in Li Mosen's mind several times. The echoes shook him to the brink of collapse. Li Mosen stood up abruptly and shouted, "I don't want to go, I don't want to go, Dad, I want to stay in Kingstown. It would be a waste of your talent to stay in Kingstown." Li Xiqing's eyes turned cold again. He looked at Li Mosen in front of him and said coldly, "You are very talented in physics. You can choose an excellent physics school, or you can go directly to my alma mater. I will arrange the best education for you." Li Mosen wanted to say something, but then Su Qianxi came forward and gently held him. Her voice was soft and comforting as she said, "Mosen, your father is doing this for your own good. Calm down first." There was a moment of silence. Then, Li Mosen's voice was almost cold and emotionless. It was eerily calm. He asked, "For my own good?" His voice was cold and very stiff. Su Qianxi was shocked by Li Mosen's behavior. She held him and stood beside him. She didn't know when this child had grown up, even to the point where she needed to look up to him. Su Qianxi was slightly shocked. She reached out and gently comforted him. "Yes, Mosen, Dad and Mom are doing this for your own good. Your father just doesn't want your talent to be buried. Don't give him excuses." Li Mosen gently pushed Su Qianxi away and looked at Li Xiqing coldly. "Do you not want me to be buried, or do you not want your daughter to be coveted by the son of your enemy?" Li Xiqing's face suddenly darkened. "What did you say?" Li Mosen met Li Xiqing's eyes and instinctively lowered his eyes. But in the next moment, Li Mosen realized what he was doing. He was slightly startled. He lowered his head and clenched his fists. He said in a low voice, "I know who my biological mother is. I know that woman destroyed your family back then. Since I was a child, people around me have always reminded me that I can have everything I have today because of my mother's kindness. I can stand here because my mother saved my life twice from that woman." Li Mosen suddenly laughed sarcastically. He looked at the intricate carpet under his feet and said in a low voice, "I've been your son for so many years. Now, I don't want to be your son now, Dad." But before he said anything, Su Qianxi covered his mouth. Su Qianxi's hands had a faint aroma of tea, mixed with her unique scent, forming a mother's scent. Li Mosen's eyes trembled, and he lowered his head to meet Su Qianxi's gaze. Su Qianxi was now 40 years old, but the years still left no trace on her face. Her face was 80% similar to Li Jianyue's. Su Qianxi's eyes were a little watery. With a little fear, she shouted at him, "Mosen." Calling his name, she burst into tears. Li Mosen was shocked. It was only then that he realized how hurtful his words were. Li Xiqing's masseter muscles were twisted. He quickly walked over and pulled Su Qianxi over. Looking at the young man in front of him, who was already comparable to his height, Li Xiqing said in a slow voice, "Continue." Su Qianxi's voice was already trembling. "Mosen, whether it is in the past or now, to us, you are no different from Desu and Ursu. Chapter 2249. Su Qianxi's voice was a little loud, and it poured into Li Mosen's ears. He was stunned and then fell silent. Li Xiqing looked at the child in front of him who he had raised with his own hands and narrowed his eyes. What? Are you done? Li Mosen pursed his lips and clenched his fists. He nodded at Li Xiqing. I'm done. Li Xiqing reached out and patted Su Qinzi beside him. He said word by word, since you're done, go back to sleep. Li Mosen clenched his fists even tighter. He bowed slightly to them and turned to leave. Just at the moment when he turned the door handle, Su Qinzi stopped him. Mosen. Li Mosen paused. Su Qinzi suddenly felt a little sad and whispered, no one doesn't want their child to be good. You are our child. What your father just said to you is the best plan. You are too young now and don't know what you want. What you need most now is not our affirmation, but calmness. After a period of time, you will think through a lot of things. Li Mosen listened to this and paused. He finally turned the door handle and took a step forward. It was not. They did not know what he wanted at all. He liked Ursu, not because he was impulsive. Ever since he was young, he was well aware of his own background. Therefore, he wanted to repay the favor by doing something that he could do within his abilities. But he did not know when he started to be obsessed with this feeling of being needed. The innocent and lovely Ursu always looked at him with her round eyes and smiled. She called him obediently and cutely, Brother Mosen, I want this. Brother Mosen is the best. Brother Mosen is of course the best person. I like Brother Mosen the most. Mosen walked up the stairs absent-mindedly. When he thought of Ursu's face, the gloominess on his face lessened slightly. Even his gaze softened. And at this moment, there was a slight sound of the door opening upstairs. Li Jianrui's little head popped out. When she saw Li Mosen, she blinked and said, Brother Mosen, what's wrong? Why did Dad ask you to go? When Li Mosen saw Li Jianrui's innocent and adorable face, the gloomy look on his face disappeared the moment he saw her. He walked up to her and gently pressed her head. Why aren't you asleep yet? Although Li Jianrui was clumsy and her reaction was a little slow, at this moment, she could also sense Mosen's unhappiness. What's wrong? Did Daddy scold you? Li Mosen's gaze softened. He looked at her and nudged her. Let's go in first. Let's talk inside. Li Jianrui quickly jumped back and then opened the door to let him in. When Li Mosen came in, he wanted to close the door, but in the next moment, a wave of bitterness poured into his heart. After hesitating for a moment, he opened the door and walked in. On the other hand, Li Jianrui was a little surprised. Hey, why didn't you close the door? As he spoke, he walked up and closed the door behind him. Then, he turned around and jumped back to his bed. What's wrong? What do you want to talk to me about? The soft little mattress trembled as she sat down. It looked soft. Li Mosen said, if I go abroad, will you miss me? Chapter 2250. Li Jianrui's big eyes were filled with questions. She looked at him and realized that Li Mosen had an indescribable feeling today. There was an indescribable emotion in his deep gaze. Li Jianrui's heart felt slightly lifted. She was actually a little nervous. Is that so? Li Mosen did not answer. Instead, he asked, do you want me to go abroad? Do you want me to go abroad? Do you want me to? Perhaps even Li Mosen himself did not realize that at this moment, his hand was already on his knee. A pair of eyes were staring straight at Li Jianrui. The anticipation in his eyes had almost turned into desire, forcing her to give him the answer that he longed for deeply in his heart. Li Jianrui also noticed that there was something wrong with Li Mosen's gaze, but she was not afraid. Instead, she tilted her head and said, I don't want you to go abroad, but I know that with Brother Mosen's intelligence and ability, you can definitely stand higher and further. A small kingstown can't restrict you. Li Mosen had originally thought that with Li Jianrui's usual temperament, she would only say yes or no. However, the words that came after were exactly the same as what Li Xiqing had said. Li Mosen did not know what he was feeling at this moment. He looked at her and quietly loosened his fists. Suddenly, he clenched them tightly. Looking at her, his gaze unconsciously deepened. He asked softly, "So, do you also think that I should leave?" Li Jianrui noticed Mosen's unhappiness and immediately shook her head. She said, "This is not leaving. How can this be considered as leaving? You see, brother has been studying in the capital for so many years. But in my heart, brother will always be brother. Although he went to the north to study, which is very far away from me, I also know that the education in Kingstown is not as good as that in the capital. Even the best school is unable to develop brother's talent. That's why Dad and Mom sent brother to the capital back then. No, they just want Daesu to spend more time with your grandparents." Li Mosen's tone was very firm, and he believed it without a doubt. "No, it's not what you think. It's one thing for Grandpa and Grandma to want someone to accompany them. That's just one factor. But Dad's biggest plan is to give brother the best education. Look, if Dad and Mom hadn't sent brother to Kingstown back then, he wouldn't have become the youngest master's student in the world of scientific research. Now, the best scientific research in the country is in Kingstown. That's why Dad let brother and brother Chu come back to study." Li Mosen had never thought of this, nor had he heard anyone mention it. He had thought many times that Yu Chulin and Li Jianxian were homesick and wanted to stay in Kingstown. That was why they had used the best excuse to come back to Kingstown for scientific research. Li Xiqing just acquiesced. But now Li Jianhua told him that in fact, Li Xiqing and Su Qianxi had already arranged everything tacitly. Li Mosen recalled that when he was very young, Li Xiqing had asked him more than once, "What do you want to do when you grow up?" At that time, Li Mosen was still young, and his answer was different every time. Sometimes, his answer was that he wanted to be a scientist because scientists were great. Sometimes, his answer was that he wanted to be a doctor because he didn't want illness to torture humans. Later, Li Mosen asked him again, "What do you want to do when you grow up?" Chapter 2251. In fact, Li Mosen was also crying directly. At that time, old Master Li Sun, had just passed away. Li Mosen quickly wiped his tears and sobbed, "I want to be a god, so that I can protect the people I want to protect. I won't let death take away the people I care about." At that time, Li Xiqing looked at him quietly for a while, but did not say anything. He only hugged him in his arms and patted him silently. Li Mosen could not stop his tears at that time, and his heart was even more sad. They were finally going to drive him away, weren't they? After all, he was the son of the enemy, and they were not as close to him as they were to their own children. In this family, other than Su Qianxi, only Grandpa Li Sun loved him the most. Now that Grandpa Li Sun had passed away, and Su Qianxi did not have her own opinions, Li Xiqing had been harmed so badly by Tang Menjing. How could he allow the son of such a person to be by his side? He was afraid that it was premeditated to get rid of him. But because everyone knew that they had adopted him, it was reasonable for them to be responsible for his future. That was why they kept asking him what he wanted to do in the future. It was convenient. They could give him a good path for his future now, and then they could get rid of him openly. The more Li Mosen thought about it, the sadder he became. Finally, on that quiet night, he cried his heart out. Fortunately, from then on, Li Xiqing never asked him again. Li Mosen did not know if Li Xiqing knew what he was thinking, but from then on, he subconsciously stayed away from him. Although he called him Dad, his heart was gradually drifting away. Perhaps Li Xiqing also noticed it, so he cooperated and stopped asking about Li Xiqing's life and future aspirations. Li Mosen finally felt relieved. From then on, his world was subconsciously only Su Qianxi and Li Ersu. Su Qianxi was gentle and kind, and Li Jianhua was pure and innocent. He had long decided to protect these two women to the end. But he never expected that Li Jianhua would say such a thing. Could it be that he had misunderstood Li Xiqing? Li Mosen knew that Li Jianhua was not a person who would lie, so he asked, "Did Dad ask you to say these words? Why did Dad tell me all this?" "I heard this from Grandma and Grandpa. In the past, I couldn't bear for brother to go to school. Grandpa hugged me and explained it to me. Only then did I know that Dad and Mom sent Brother to school in the capital for his own good. Accompanying Grandma and Grandpa was also one of their goals. But more importantly, they wanted Brother to stand out. Li Jianyu was baffled. Li Mosen pursed his lips and asked softly, "Did Dad just call me to the study?" "I know, and then?" Li Jianyu realized that Li Mosen's repressed emotions seemed to have loosened. She was elated and asked, "Did he let you go abroad?" "Yes, he wants me to go to New York Business School." "Wow!" Li Jianyu exclaimed. "That's Dad's alma mater. Daddy really likes that place." A while ago, Big Brother said that he wanted to go there to study, but Daddy said that he was not suitable and wouldn't let Big Brother go. Li Mosen's face was full of doubt. "Really?" Chapter 2252. Li Mosen looked at Li Jianyue's serious expression and pursed his lips. Was that what he said? "Who? Dad?" Li Jianyu looked at him and nodded. "Yes, it was Dad who said it. Mom said that although Brother Mosen is smart, his personality isn't as cheerful as mine. She asked me to spend more time with you and then take you out to have fun." Li Jianyu walked over to Li Mosen and said, "Mom said that although Brother Mosen is smart, his personality isn't as cheerful as mine." Li Mosen paused for a moment and stood rooted to the ground. Li Jianyu stood in front of him and pinched his nose with 2 fingers. She said, "You can't do without me at all. Look at how long I haven't looked at you, and you're already so unhappy." "Humph." Li Mosen's nose was pinched. At this moment, his heart was itching. Just as Li Jianyue's hand was about to leave, he finally couldn't help but reach out and grab her small hand. Li Jianyue was stunned. The next second, her body felt light. Li Jianyue exclaimed out of habit. The next moment, she was already in Li Mosen's arms. Li Jianyue was pressed on his shoulder. She could clearly smell the smell of hot pot on his body. Li Jianyue blinked and turned to look at him. Li Mosen also turned his head slightly. The two of them faced each other, less than half a fist apart. At such a close distance, Li Mosen's nose was filled with the fresh fragrance of her body after she had bathed. Li Mosen unconsciously sniffed. The fragrance seemed to drill into his heart. While it made him feel relaxed and happy, he couldn't help but feel restless. Li Mosen's heartbeat sped up unconsciously. Looking at her pink cheeks and bright eyes, he felt as if his heart had been melted by her. Her ignorance and innocence made him feel as if his heart had been melted by her. Li Jianyue seemed to have seen something novel and moved closer to Li Mosen. Li Mosen's face turned red from his face to his ears. Even the bottom of his neck felt hot. His nerves seemed to be stretched taut. When Li Jianyue approached him, his body was so stiff that he didn't dare to move. Li Jianyue didn't notice Li Mosen's stiffness at all. Her eyes were attracted to the novelty she had discovered. Li Jianyue stopped less than 2 centimeters in front of him. She suddenly reached out and touched his eyebrow. "Brother Mosen, why do you have a mole on your eyebrow?" Li Mosen only felt her fingers touching his face softly. That soft touch made his heart palpitate. Li Mosen had never been so nervous before. For the first time, he didn't know what to do in front of his sister, whom he had been with for more than 10 years. Meeting her gaze, Li Mosen suppressed the nervousness in his heart and said softly, "I've had it for a long time. It was just like liking you." He didn't know when it started to appear, but one day, he suddenly realized its existence. "Wow, I've been with you every day, but I didn't notice," Li Jianyue said with a curious expression. "It's all because your eyebrows are too thick. I can only see them when I'm so close." Li Mosen looked at her red lips, and his throat tightened. Then, he pushed her away unnaturally. "It means that you don't care about me." Chapter 2253. Li Mosen smiled and reached out to touch her little nose. "You only know how to quibble. If you didn't find it, then you didn't find it. There is no if. But didn't I find it now? Li Jianhua said confidently. Humph, and I saw it very clearly. During the conversation, even Li Jianhua herself did not realize that the distance between them was getting closer and closer. Li Mosen was a little stiff. He subconsciously raised his hand and gently hugged her. Ursu. Yes? Li Jianhua did not feel anything wrong. You, knock knock. There was a knock on the door. Li Mosen almost reflexively let go of her. And Li Jianhua did not notice the speed of Li Mosen's movement. She turned to look at the door, then stood up straight and walked toward the door. She asked, "Who is it?" "Open the door." It was Li Jianxian's voice. Li Jianhua opened the door and said with a strange face, "Oh, it's rare that my brother would come to my small room." Li Jianxian had already taken a shower and was wearing dark blue pajamas. His short black hair was half dry, and his phoenix eyes were the same as Li Xicheng's. He looked a little lazy. He looked at his sister in front of him, who was like a child for 10 years. He did not know what expression he had on his face, and looked inside. Li Mosen had already walked out. When he saw it was Li Jianxian, he just looked away. Everyone was too familiar with each other, and they were used to all kinds of eye contact. Unexpectedly, Li Jianxian was actually looking for Li Mosen. "Mosen, come to my room." When she heard this, Li Jianhua was unhappy. She put her hands on her hips and puffed out her chest. She looked fierce and shouted, "Hey, why did you come to my room to look for Brother Mosen? Can't you look for your beautiful, lovely, and kind sister?" "I only have one sister." "She doesn't have the description you said," Li Jianxian said with a face full of disgust. He reached out and gently pushed her away. "Get out of the way." Li Jianhua stood in front of Mosen angrily. "Don't go. Brother doesn't know how to talk at all. I won't let him go." Okay, you are naive, you are cute, go away." Li Daisu. Li Jianxian glanced at Mosen and then turned to leave. Li Mosen gently placed his hand on Li Jianhua's shoulder and quickly said, "I'll go for a while." Li Jianhua was furious, but she also knew that if Li Jianxian had nothing to do, he would not come to her room to look for Mosen. But what could it be? Li Jianhua's eyes darted around as she quietly followed behind them. As for Li Jianxian, when he brought Li Mosen into his room, he inadvertently raised his head and found Li Jianhua, who was trying to eavesdrop. Without batting an eyelid, Li Jianxian said, "Mosen, you go in first." Of course, Li Mosen also knew that Li Jianhua was behind them. He couldn't help but smile when he saw the little head that was trying hard to hide in the corner but still revealed some clues. Before Li Jianxian entered the door, he said in a voice that was neither too loud nor too soft, "It seems that Granny Rong made some sweet water and left it in the kitchen. Let's go have some later." Li Jianhua's ears twitched. Sugar water? Just as she was wondering when Granny Rong made the sugar water, the next moment, she heard the sound of Li Jianxian closing the door. Not only did he close the door, he actually locked it. Chapter 2254. When she reached the kitchen, Li Jianhua realized that she had been tricked by Li Jianxian. Li Jianhua stomped her feet in anger, but there was nothing she could do. On the other side, Li Jianxian closed the door and turned to look at Mosen. "What did Dad say to you when he asked you to go to the study?" "About college." Li Jianxian nodded as if he had expected it. "I knew that Dad wouldn't allow you to go to Kingstown University. I guess Dad would ask you to go to Capital University or New York University. He wants me to go to New York Business School. That's within my expectations." Li Jianxian's face was full of relief. "Because I've already made it clear to Dad that I don't want to go home to do business. I just want to study hard and develop in my current professional field." "When did you tell Dad?" "I told him a long time ago. Maybe 2 years ago. 3 years ago." "What reaction did he have?" Li Jianxian shrugged. "What reaction?" "He didn't have any reaction at all." Li Mosen found it a little hard to believe. What kind of reaction is that? He just said, I got it, and that was it. Li Mosen frowned. Li Xiqing was different from others. The Li Corporation was a huge enterprise, and it was all built by Li Xiqing alone. Other than the 4 years when he was away, there was absolutely no one else to make it what it was now. But now, Li Xiqing did not force Li Jianxian to learn business, but instead asked the son of his enemy to learn it. What did that mean? Li Mosen's heart beat faster, and the ideas in his mind became more and more daring. Could it be that Li Xiqing wanted him to inherit the family business? This idea that Li Mosen had never even dared to think about popped up here. It was simply crazy. Li Mosen suppressed the terrible speculation in his heart and looked at Li Jianxian. What does he mean? Can't you tell what he means? Li Jianxian laughed. He told me to study hard and to develop in my own field. The family business is a small matter. He can still manage it now. When he can't manage it anymore, there will always be someone who can take over. After a pause, Li Jianxian saw the disbelief on Li Mosen's face and teased, anyway, he wants you to learn business. You are also his son, so there's nothing wrong with letting you learn business, right? I'm just a foster son. An adopted son is still a son. Li Jianxian patted him on the shoulder. Keep it up. It's not easy for Dad to get to where he is today. Don't let it fall in your hands in the future. Li Mosen was quiet for a moment, and his mood was a little complicated. This complicated feeling lasted for a long time. When he returned to his room, washed up, and went to bed, his head was full of what Li Jianxian had just said. Did he really think so? Li Mosen didn't really want these things. He just felt that such a huge family business should be inherited by his own son. He shouldn't pin his hopes on an adopted son. Moreover, this adopted son was the son of his enemy, a bastard whose biological father was unknown. Li Mosen stared at the ceiling in the dark. He didn't know how long it had been, but he still didn't feel sleepy. When he woke up the next day, the dark circles under his eyes were particularly obvious on his fair face. Chapter 2255. Li Jianrui was a little surprised. She looked at Li Mosen and asked, Brother Mosen, did you steal last night? Li Mosen coughed softly and turned his face away. Go and eat. Li Jianrui saw him like this and immediately leaned over. Is it because Daddy scolded you last night that you couldn't sleep? Li Mosen looked down at her. Li Jianrui looked sympathetic. Don't be sad. Daddy scolded you for your own good. Daddy doesn't usually scold people. Look, Daddy has never scolded me. That's because you're too stupid. There's no use scolding you. Li Jianxian's melodious voice sounded with a hint of mockery. Are you proud of yourself? Li Jianrui puffed up her cheeks and said angrily, No way. Are you jealous? I'm not. Li Jianxian walked over and lifted his hand to clamp Li Jianrui under his armpit. Let's go eat. Hey, let go. You smell like a fox. I'll squash you if you spout nonsense again. I'm not spouting nonsense. Smell it yourself. Li Jianxian laughed angrily and pressed her head further under his armpit. Help me smell it. Wretch. Li Jianrui pretended to vomit, but she still couldn't escape the situation of being carried by Li Jianxian. The 17-year-old Li Jianxian was more than 1.7 meters tall. Coupled with his regular exercise, it was effortless for him to carry the petite Li Jianrui. In the end, Li Jianxian ended up at the dining table. When she turned around and saw Yu Chulin walking over slowly, she shouted, Brother Chu, quickly control my brother. He's starting to bully me again. Yu Chulin sat down casually and chuckled. Really? Why didn't I see it? Sob sob sob, you're in cahoots. You're all bullying me. Li Jianrui cried. When she saw Li Mosen walking over from behind, she said, Brother Mosen, sob sob. Li Mosen's lips curled up. He reached out and tapped her nose. All right, with your acting skills, you can be an actress. Where do you want to go later? Li Jianrui tilted her head and suddenly thought of a place. Let's go to the amusement park we went to last time, okay? Amusement park? Yeah, it's the one with the Ferris wheel and the one with the Kumamon bear selling rabbit ears. Li Jianyue's eyes sparkled. We went there in the evening. Wouldn't it be more fun during the day? Li Mosen frowned. Of course, he knew that place. He also remembered the Kumamon bear that sold rabbit ears the last time he saw it. However, the way that the Kumamon bear looked at them did not seem normal. It was as if he had other emotions, as if he knew them. Li Mosen didn't like that feeling very much. However, seeing that Li Jianyue was so interested, Li Mosen couldn't bear to reject her. After hesitating for a moment, he suggested, I know a similar place. Shall we go somewhere else? Li Jianyue shook her head. I think that place is very good. It's close to home and we can eat hot pot. When we're done, we can go and eat hot pot. Speaking of hot pot, Li Jianyue was almost drooling. Unlike the rest of the family, Li Jianyue really liked eating hot pot. She was almost obsessed with it. In addition, there was also ice cream and all kinds of fried snacks. She liked all of them very much. Chapter 2256. Of course not. He was fed by Grandpa and Grandma. I didn't ask them to feed him. Granny Rong's cooking is nutritionally balanced. Nanny Rong, who was busy at the side, smiled when she heard Li Jianyue's words. She was very pleased. She had been in the Li family for so many years and had long regarded these children as her own grandchildren. Nanny Rong was naturally very happy to be praised by them. However, she still said, let's talk about this here. Don't say things like that in front of Moyen. Otherwise, he will be in a bad mood. Granny Rong, we have to talk to him more so that he can actively lose weight. Otherwise, if he continues to gain weight like this, he will be ruined, Li Jianyue said firmly. Just as they were talking, the doorbell rang. Nanny Rong quickly went to open the door. It was Li Moyen. Li Moyen's expression was a little tragic at this time. He moved his fat body in and opened his hands to the sky. He shouted loudly, I, Li Han-san, am back again. Hey, who is Li Han-san? Li Jianyue turned to look at Li Mosen while eating breakfast. I don't know Li Han-san. Brother Mosen, quickly chase him away. Hey, Li Moyen said angrily. Li Ursu, don't go too far. I haven't settled the score with you for live streaming hot pot last night. What score? I just felt sorry for you at home, so I wanted to share it with you. Li Moyen said angrily. You still dare to say that? I was hungry all night because of you. Look at my dark circles, dark circles. Li Moyen pried his eyelids open and moved closer to her. How pitiful. Such dark circles are all your fault. Wow, you really have dark circles. But if you were hungry, wouldn't you have asked Grandpa and Grandma to cook for you? You still dare to say that? Li Moyen was about to cry. It's all because of you. Grandpa and Grandma started to think that I was fat when they saw how thin you were. They said that I was like a pig and forced me to lose weight. From now on, I'm not allowed to have meat for lunch. I can only eat vegetables every day. What have I done? Then you were hungry all night? Yu Chulin suddenly asked. Li Moyen felt even worse. I was so hungry that I couldn't take it anymore, so Grandpa gave me a piece of hardtack. Ha 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 ha. Li Jianyue laughed out loud. This is too tragic. Ha 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 ha. The corners of Li Mosen's lips curled up. Li Jianxian replied, it's only right. Grandpa and Grandma were right. Given your physique, if you continue to gain weight, it'll be difficult to lose weight in the future. It's hard to reduce it now. That's true. Li Moyen felt that the whole world was against him. He sat down at the dining table dejectedly. Was it his fault that he was fat? Did he want to be fat? He didn't want to, okay. It was his grandparents who had fed him to make him fat, but in the end, he was despised by them. The more Li Moyun thought about it, the more aggrieved he felt. He grabbed a piece of bread and started munching on it. However, Yu Chulin grabbed her hand before she could bite him. Li Moyun was stunned for a moment. However, Yu Chulin had a teasing look on his face as he asked with a smile, "Didn't you eat before you came?" Of course, Li Moyun ate it. However, he only ate 2 steamed buns, a cup of soy milk, and a fried dough stick. It wasn't even enough to fill the gaps between his teeth. Although he wasn't hungry at the moment, he was sure that his stomach would be growling in less than an hour. Chapter 2257. How is that possible? Grandma wouldn't have let him out if he hadn't eaten. Brother Chu, he's lying to you, Li Jianhua shouted from behind. Yu Chulin looked at Li Moyun's expression and removed his hand. Aren't we going out to play later? Don't fill your stomach after eating. Let's go to the buffet later. Li Moyun's eyes lit up and he quickly nodded his head. He retracted his hand and said honestly, "Actually, I've already eaten. I'll go on an empty stomach so that I can eat more when we go to the buffet later." Haha. Yu Chulin smiled faintly. Li Jianxian reached out and patted his shoulder gently. The two of them looked at each other and smiled. After breakfast, Li Moyun eagerly caught up with Li Jianhua and Li Mosen. However, when he turned around, he realized that Li Jianxian and Yu Chulin were not with him. He asked Li Mosen in confusion, "Where are Brother Chu and second brother?" The eldest brother was Li Mosen, so the second brother was naturally Li Jianxian. Li Mosen looked at him and answered honestly, "I don't know." Li Moyun felt that something was wrong. "Didn't you say that you were going to the buffet together?" "Did we?" Li Mosen looked at him with a faint smile. "Ursu and I were going to play. Chu and Daesu are the ones going to the buffet." "Did you hear wrongly?" Li Moyun was stunned. "Wait, what? You're not going together? Who told you that?" Li Jianhua laughed. "Let's go. I'll take you out to play." "Hey, I don't want to. I want to go to the buffet." "Your buffet is long gone." Li Mosen looked at him sympathetically. "It seems that Daesu and Chu are going to visit a professor's house today. They even brought gifts. They might have lunch at the professor's house. If it's a buffet, it'll be at least in the evening." Li Moyun's heart was filled with anger at being deceived. He shouted, "That's too much. I didn't expect Brother Chu to be such a person. Ursu, let's go." "What did you call me?" Li Jianhua raised her eyebrows and put on airs. When Li Moyun saw this, he immediately smiled apologetically and said, "Sister, my dear sister, where are you planning to go?" Humph, Li Jianhua enjoyed the feeling of being called sister. Although Li Moyun often thought that she was stupid and didn't want to call her sister at all. But now that he was called out, he felt light in his heart. He said proudly, "To the amusement park." "Ha." Li Moyun was a little disappointed. "Why is it an amusement park again? Aren't you sick of going there every day?" "I don't go every day. I rarely go, okay?" Li Jianhua reached out and patted him. "Are you going? Go." The 3 siblings soon arrived at the amusement park that Li Jianhua had been longing for. The amusement park had been quietly renovated. Compared to the last time Li Jianhua saw it, some places seemed to have changed. There were many more dolls around. In addition to the Kumaman, there was also a Pikachu, Whitey, and a giant doll that Li Jianhua had seen before but couldn't name. Because it was the weekend, there were many children around. They surrounded the big dolls, holding lollipops and ice cream in their hands. They chased each other and laughed happily. Almost subconsciously, Li Jianhua's eyes fell on the Kumaman as soon as she entered. Chapter 2258. Li Jianhua looked at the big stupid bear and blinked her eyes. She wanted to go forward to greet it, but she was afraid of mistaking it for someone else. Li Mosen noticed her gaze and his eyes darkened. He put his hand on her shoulder and asked, "What are you looking at?" "I'm looking for," Li Moyun suddenly shouted from behind, "I want to eat ice cream." "No, it's the easiest to put on weight." Li Jianhua nudged Li Mosen and said, "Hurry up and pull Moyun back. If he continues to eat, he will become fat." Li Mosen raised his hand and put it around her neck. Then, he walked towards the chubby Li Moyun and said, "You can eat it later. We just finished dinner. How are you going to eat the buffet if you eat ice cream now?" When Li Moyun heard the word buffet, he suddenly became energetic and said, "Buffet." Li Jianhua blinked her eyes. If it was a buffet, wouldn't Li Moyun eat even more? How could he lose weight if he continued to eat like this? But then, Li Jianhua received a look from Li Mosen. Li Jianhua understood and immediately felt some sympathy for Li Moyun. At this time, Li Moyun was still immersed in the surprise of the buffet. He was still excitedly thinking about which restaurant to eat at. The meat would be better and the desserts would be more suitable. Thinking about it made him drool and his stomach shrink. Li Moyun decided to digest it first. On the other side, Li Mosen looked at Li Jianhua and asked, "What are you looking for just now?" "Oh, I'm looking for my classmate. He works here part-time and comes to work every day after school to earn money." Li Jianhua's big eyes fell on the crowd in front of her again. Her eyes moved to the Kumamon bear again. "Do you remember that bear? I bought kitten ears from him last time." Of course, Li Mosen remembered. The last time he came here, he remembered that the Kumamon had been looking at them. It was either looking at Li Jianhua or him. Li Mosen was very sensitive to people's gazes. At this moment, he looked at the Kumamon and narrowed his eyes. At this time, the Kumamon Kun was swaying, looking charmingly naive. It was surrounded by children, holding a handful of balloons and small toys in its hands. It sent them out one by one, and after the parents scanned the QR code, it waved to the children. The children were very happy. After waving goodbye to the Kumamon, they quickly grabbed the balloons and walked away. However, after the first wave of children left, a new wave of children surrounded it. The Kumamon Kun was very busy. Li Jianhua looked at the busy doll and said, "I don't know if it's him. I can't see his face and the things he's selling are different from the last time. He looks really busy." Li Mosen pursed his lips. "Are you on good terms with him?" "I didn't like him at first. I thought that he was a delinquent. He didn't do well in school and liked to doze off in class. He always looked like he hadn't woken up all day. But a few days ago, I finally found out that he didn't sleep enough because he wanted to earn money. His father didn't give him pocket money because of his stepmother. His father also didn't allow him to draw. In fact, his drawings are very good. Let me show you." Li Jianhua turned her head to look at Li Mosen and blinked. "I didn't like him at first." Li Jianhua had removed Quan Jingyi's WeChat from the blacklist. Quan Jingyi had even sent her a few portraits. Chapter 2259. Seeing the surprise on Li Mosen's face, Li Jianhua was a little happy and asked, "I didn't lie to you, did I? It's really great." Li Jianhua's expression was a little proud, as if it was something worth showing off. Seeing this, Li Mosen unconsciously tightened his lips, and a trace of gloominess flashed across his eyes. Not far away, the Kumamon was surrounded by children all the time, collecting money from time to time, handing over the QR code, and then taking small gifts. There was no free time at all. It seemed that the Kumamon didn't notice them at all and didn't even look at them. There were so many part-time people every day, so it was not a coincidence that Quan Jingyi was here today. But even so, Li Mosen still felt very uncomfortable in his heart. He put his arm around Li Jianhua's shoulder and moved her eyes away invisibly. He said calmly, "There are too many people here. Let's go and play something else." Li Jianhua looked at the Kumamon and saw that it really didn't seem to have time to talk to her at all. Then she nodded and said, "Well, let's see if he is my classmate later." Li Mosen's lips tightened. He didn't say anything and turned around. Li Moyun saw something fun and shouted from afar, "Brother Mosen, Ursu, come quickly. Let's line up here. If we wait any longer, there will be more people." Because there were many people on the weekend, there were a lot of people waiting in line in the amusement park. Li Jianhua also knew that there were fewer people at this time, so she quickly ran to Li Moyun and shouted, "Coming." Then she suddenly stopped and turned to Mosen and said, "Brother Mosen, I want to eat ice cream." It was near noon, and the sun was getting more and more scorching. At this moment, Mosen also felt a little cold, so he nodded. Then Li Jianhua turned around and ran to her brother to line up, and soon she was behind Li Moyun. Li Mosen withdrew his gaze from Li Jianhua's back, and then his eyes fell on the Kumamon again. The Kumamon seemed to be finally busy. After sending away the last batch of children, it had a moment of respite. It touched its full pockets with satisfaction. When it turned around, it seemed to see Li Mosen and paused for a moment. Then, it spread out its hands and pointed to a pile of little things in front of it, as if asking. Li Mosen shook his head slightly and quickly turned to leave. After buying 3 ice creams, Li Jianhua and Li Moyun had already lined up inside. When they saw Li Mosen coming over, the two of them quickly waved at him. After apologizing to the people around them and greeting them, they let Li Mosen cut the line and come in. She ate the ice cream contentedly. Suddenly, Li Jianhua's phone vibrated. He picked it up. It was WeChat. "Quan Jingyi, you're at the amusement park?" Li Mosen took advantage of his height to take a look. When he saw Quan Jingyi's name, his mood was already terrible. Li Moyun was a little taller than Li Jianhua. When he saw the name and the content of the message, he immediately screamed, "Hey, who is this?" "Li Ursu, are you in love?" Li Jianhua replied, "How is that possible? They're just classmates. Don't you have female classmates too? That's different. Does he want to chase you?" Chapter 2260. Romance Chinese Network. The latest chapter of the 99th divorce was updated as soon as possible. "Why not?" After saying that, Li Jianhua lowered her head and quickly replied to Quan Jingyao, "Yes, where are you? I don't see you." Before the message could be sent, the phone had been taken away from her hand. Li Mosen calmly put her phone into his pocket and said to Li Moyun, "Don't bring your phone with you when you play the game. Give me your phone." Li Moyun was surprised and said, "Brother Mosen, aren't you going in with us?" Li Mosen looked up at the roller coaster and said, "I'm afraid of heights." "Liar." Thinking of the last time, Li Jianhua immediately said, "We played this together last time." After saying that, she pouted and looked up at him in disbelief. "Do you not want to play with us anymore?" Li Moyun pursed his lips and smiled. He rubbed the top of her head and said, "No, go quickly. The staff is urging us." The staff was indeed urging them. Li Moyun couldn't wait to shove the phone into Li Mosen's hand and grabbed Li Jianhua's arm. "Ursu, go quickly. Let Brother Mosen accompany us in the next project." Li Jianhua was dragged into the roller coaster by Li Moyun. At first, she was still concerned about Mosen. After sitting on the roller coaster, she and Li Moyun were so excited that they forgot everything else. The roller coaster was accompanied by the screams of young men and women as it passed in front of Li Mosen. The phone in his hands suddenly vibrated again. Li Mosen clicked on Li Jianhua's phone and saw that it was another message from Quan Jingyi. "Quan Jingyi, where are you now? I'm done with my work. I'll go find you." Looking at Quan Jingyi's WeChat profile picture, Li Mosen's gaze became more and more gloomy. He clenched the phone in his hand and thought for a moment. He imitated Li Jianhua's tone and replied, "I want to accompany my brother. I don't want to play with you." After sending it, he immediately deleted the message and only left the message that Quan Jingyi had sent previously. He didn't know if he was really hurt by this message. Quan Jingyi didn't reply to Li Jianhua's message even after they finished playing. Although Li Moyun was fat, deep down, he was a lively little fatty who liked excitement. After playing the roller coaster, he couldn't wait to drag Li Jianhua and Li Mosen to play other exciting projects. Looking at the happy Li Jianhua, Li Mosen was in a good mood and accompanied the two of them to play the next game. By noon, Li Moyun's interest was completely taken away by the food and he made a fuss about going to the buffet. Li Mosen took the two of them to the restaurant in the amusement park. Since it was the weekend, the restaurant was full of people. Moreover, the buffet that Li Moyun had been longing for wasn't here. When he saw the restaurant, Li Moyun immediately grabbed Li Ersu and Li Mosen's hands and shouted, "Ah, where's the buffet? Big whore." Li Jianhua was indignant. She put her hands on her hips and said, "I'll eat this today." Li Moyun was exasperated. "But you promised to have a buffet this morning." Li Jianhua giggled as she took a step forward and said, "I didn't promise you anything." Li Moyun was dumbfounded and suddenly remembered that it was Li Jianxian who had promised to have a buffet with him. Li Moyun instantly felt as if he had been cheated. He wanted to cry but had no tears. He turned to look at Li Mosen and cried out, "Brother Mosen." Li Mosen said seriously, "If we go out now, we'll have to buy another ticket to come in." "Ah. I don't want to." Li Moyun was about to cry. "I want to eat a buffet." Li Moyun. Li Jianhua rarely put on the airs of an older sister. "If you continue eating, you'll really become fat like a pig." Li Mosen ignored Li Moyun's opinion and turned to line up in front to get a number. There were many people in the queue. When Li Mosen got the number, there were already more than 10 tables in front of them even if he came early. When he came back with the number, he didn't know when, but there was a tall young man beside Li Jianhua. Chapter 2261. Romance Chinese Network. The latest chapter of the 99th divorce was updated as soon as possible. Looking at the young man's back, Li Mosen immediately felt a sense of crisis. It was an indescribable feeling, as if his treasure was being coveted. Li Mosen hid the expression on his face and walked forward silently. When he walked in front of her, he saw Li Jianhua looking very excited. She tilted her head and gestured with her hands to pretend to be a bunny. Her big black eyes were clear and pure, and her fair and tender face looked very cute. Quan Jingyi, who was standing in front of her, stared at her with a slightly roguish smile on his face. Li Mosen could empathize with that kind of look. It was the look of being attracted to the opposite sex. "Brother Mosen, you're back." Li Moyun, who was standing at the side, saw him first and waved at him. Li Jianhua and Quan Jingyi also turned to look at him. Li Mosen pursed his lips and smiled faintly. He looked at Quan Jingyi. And the latter was also looking at him with a sizing gaze. "Brother Mosen, what did you order?" Li Jianhua turned around and ran to his side. She grabbed his arm and looked at the receipt. She shouted proudly, "Ha, it's all my favorite food." Li Moyun bellowed angrily, "I'll never hang out with scammers again." Li Jianhua smiled indifferently and said, "Brother Mosen only ordered 3 servings. If you don't eat, then let Quan Jingyi eat." In front of a foodie, snatching food from others was like killing his parents. Li Moyun immediately looked at Quan Jingyi warily. Quan Jingyi put his hands in his trouser pockets and raised his eyebrows slightly. He said very cooperatively, "I have no objection." "No." Li Moyun immediately hugged Li Mosen's arm and shouted, "Who said I don't want to eat?" "Brother Mosen, I want to eat the biggest portion." Li Jianhua hugged her arms and snorted, "Quan Jingyi has already promised to have lunch with us. There's no more for you." Hearing Li Jianhua's words, Li Mosen frowned slightly unconsciously. He glanced coldly at Quan Jingyi, who had no intention of leaving. He put his arm around Li Jianhua's shoulder as if nothing had happened. "Let's go and find a seat first." Li Jianhua raised her head and looked at him. "Brother Mosen, I invited a classmate to eat with us. Can you order another meal?" Li Mosen said calmly, "I ordered a lot. It's enough to eat. If it's not enough, I'll order more." The 4 of them were led to the lounge area by the waiter. Li Jianhua excitedly pulled a stool over to Quan Jingyi. She asked curiously, "Can you bring me along for a part-time job?" Quan Jingyi asked. Looking at her clear and expectant eyes, Quan Jingyi felt as if his heart was being brushed by a feather. The words of rejection were stuck in his throat. At this time, Li Mosen suddenly interrupted, "You want to do a part-time job here?" Li Jianhua turned around and nodded excitedly. "I want to experience it too." It's very interesting to hear Quan Jingyi talk about it. No. Li Mosen took a sip of water and said faintly, "Dad and Mom won't agree." Although Li Xicheng and Su Qianxi did not spoil their children, they would not allow Li Jianhua to experience social life so early. After all, they had to focus on learning now. There would be opportunities in the future for social practice. Li Jianhua pouted unhappily. Li Mosen poured a glass of water and handed it to her. He coaxed, "I'll bring you along during the holidays. Dad won't refuse." This kind of interest was temporary. After a period of time, it would naturally be forgotten. Chapter 2262. Romance Chinese Network. The latest chapter of the 99th divorce was updated as soon as possible. "I'm just experiencing it." Quan Jingyi sat lazily on the chair with a beautiful smile. "I'll take you there after dinner. There's a Pikachu set with the tour guide." "Wow, really? I like Pikachu very much." Li Jianrui immediately felt as if a switch had been turned on. She was overflowing with joy. She leaned on the table and leaned toward Quan Jingyi. "Can I wear the extra set?" Quan Jingyi nodded. "Sure." Li Jianrui was so happy that she was about to fly. She smiled brightly at Quan Jingyi and said, "That's great. You're so nice." Quan Jingyi raised his eyebrows slightly and smiled playfully. "You're saying that I'm nice now? What will you do when you know I'm nicer in the future?" Li Jianrui didn't notice the deeper meaning in Quan Jingyi's words and blurted out, "Then I'll be nicer to you too." "Really?" Li Jianrui nodded seriously. "Of course." As soon as she finished speaking, there was a harsh sound of a chair rubbing against each other. Li Mosen suddenly stood up and said with a bad expression, "Ursu, you have time now. Come with me to order some food for your classmate." Li Jianrui looked back at him in confusion. She also stood up and said, "Didn't you just say?" Before she could finish speaking, Li Mosen took her hand and left. Quan Jingyi sat up straight. When he was about to pick up a glass of water, he suddenly found that the little fatty next to him was looking at him inquisitively. "Why are you looking at me like that?" Quan Jingyi asked directly. Li Maoyun looked at him and then at the two who had left. He couldn't help but feel puzzled. Why did he feel that something was wrong? Li Maoyun scratched his forehead and glanced at Quan Jingyi next to him again. He suddenly felt enlightened and pursed his lips. It must be because of this boy. The way this boy looked at Ursu and the way he spoke just now showed that he was not a decent person. Ursu was so stupid that she didn't even realize that she was being teased by Quan Jingyi. Brother Mosen must have taken Ursu to a place where there was no one to educate her. With this thought in mind, Li Maoyun held the cup of water and looked at Quan Jingyi meaningfully. He asked, "How is your relationship with my sister?" Quan Jingyi's attitude was calm. He said calmly, "Not bad." "Which aspect is fine?" Quan Jingyi looked over and asked, "Which aspect do you want it to be?" Other than Li Jianhua, Li Maoyun and Li Mosen did not have a good time at the amusement park. Needless to say, Li Maoyun was still brooding over the fact that he had been cheated. When he came out of the amusement park, he swore that he would never go out with Ursu and Li Mosen again. Li Mosen didn't show his unhappiness on the surface, but he became a little quiet when he got home and didn't eat much at dinner. At night, when Li Mosen was reading in his bedroom, there was a knock on the door. He turned back to look. Li Jianhua secretly raised her eyebrows and poked half of her head out. She sweetly called out, "Brother Mosen." Then, she pushed the door open and walked in with a bowl of supper. Li Mosen turned back to continue reading and asked, "What's the matter?" Li Jianhua put the supper on the table and pulled a stool to sit next to him. She held her face and said, "You didn't eat much at night. I specially asked Auntie Rome to make supper for you." Chapter 2263. As soon as she finished speaking, Li Mosen's face darkened. Li Jianhua was frightened by his sudden change of expression and shrank her neck. She stuck out her tongue and didn't realize what she said wrong. "What's wrong?" "He's really a good person, but his behavior is sometimes." "Hey, Brother Mosen, where are you going?" "Wait for me." Li Mosen clenched his fists and didn't want to hear her say anything about Quan Jingyi. He turned around and left with a gloomy face. Except for Li Jianhua, Li Moyun and Li Mosen didn't have a good time at the amusement park. Needless to say, Li Moyun was still brooding about being cheated. When he came out of the amusement park, he still swore that he would never go out with Ursu and Li Mosen again. Li Mosen didn't show his unhappiness on the surface. He just became a little quiet when he got home and didn't eat much at dinner. At night, when Li Mosen was reading in the bedroom, there was a knock on the door. He turned back to look. Li Jianhua secretly raised her eyebrows and poked half of her head out. She sweetly called out, "Brother Mosen." Then, she pushed the door open and walked in with a bowl of supper. Li Mosen turned back to continue reading and asked, "What's the matter?" Li Jianhua put the supper on the table and pulled a stool to sit next to him. She held her little face and said, "You didn't eat much at night. I specially asked Auntie Rome to make supper for you." Although she didn't know why Brother Mosen suddenly became so angry at the amusement park at noon, she also understood that Brother Mosen was angry because of her. He was so angry that he didn't eat dinner, so he specially asked Auntie Rome to make supper for him and personally brought it over. Li Mosen grunted without looking up and continued to read his book. He had no intention of paying any attention to her. Li Jianhua blinked and pulled the stool closer to him. "I asked Granny Rome to make your favorite wonton. If you don't eat it, I'm going to give it to Mo Yun to eat." "Okay." Li Mosen continued to flip through the book in his hand and said perfunctorily, "Well, I'm not hungry. You go and give it to Mo Yun. You are condoning Mo Yun to commit crimes." Li Jianhua grabbed his arm and leaned over. "Brother Mosen, what book are you reading? It's so interesting." From the moment she came in, Li Mosen's attention was not on the book at all. When he heard her question, he turned to look at the contents of the book. Noticing that there were some unhealthy sentences in the book, he slammed the book shut. Ordinary extracurricular books. After saying that, he reached out and picked up the supper. Seeing that he was finally willing to eat supper, Li Jianhua tactfully stood up. She clasped her hands behind her back and looked around Li Mosen's room like a cadre visiting the countryside. Li Mosen's room was like him. It was low-key and simple. There was not much decoration, but the arrangement of things was just right. Li Jianhua leaned in front of his cabinet and looked at the figurines inside. She said, "Brother Mosen, don't be angry with me, okay? If you're angry and don't eat, I'll be sad too. When I go to the amusement park in the future, I won't only care about myself and forget about Brother Mosen." The words spoken in a sweet voice were tactful and pleasant. Her casual words were like the charming fragrance of wine, seeping into the heart and spleen. Li Mosen used the spoon to drink 2 mouthfuls of soup and couldn't eat anymore. He wanted to read the latest chapter of 99th Divorce Claw Book House for free. Chapter 2264. Romance Chinese Network. The latest chapter of the 99th Divorce was updated as soon as possible. Li Mosen drank 2 mouthfuls of soup with the spoon and couldn't eat anymore. The little girl's incessant coaxing really made him unable to be angry. Li Jianhua thought carefully for a whole night and only found this mistake that made Li Mosen unhappy. She shouldn't have been so focused on her own happiness that she forgot about Li Mosen. After saying this, she remembered that at noon, when she asked Li Mosen if he didn't like Quan Jingyi, Li Mosen's unfathomable look, so she continued, "Brother Mosen, Quan Jingyi is my friend now. He is actually a really good person, before she could finish speaking, her arm was suddenly grabbed by someone behind her. The person behind her grabbed her arm and pressed her against the wall. His handsome and chiseled face suddenly appeared in front of her. His pitch-black eyes stared at her with suppressed emotions. Li Jianhua looked at Li Mosen with her eyes wide open. She forgot what she wanted to say and forgot to move. The girl's white and tender skin was as delicate as a porcelain doll, and her big black eyes looked at him without blinking. Her thick and long eyelashes trembled slightly. Li Mosen's heart suddenly softened. He lowered his eyes slightly, and his gaze fell on the pink and full little mouth, and his slightly raised Adam's apple unconsciously moved up and down. She was within reach in front of him. As long as he wanted, he could kiss her now and taste her sweetness. Li Mosen looked up at her, and Li Jianhua burst out laughing. Her big dark eyes curved as she laughed. She looked at him with a smile and asked, "What's wrong, Brother Mosen?" Li Mosen looked at her motionlessly, and his lips were slightly pursed. He didn't know how many times he had imagined such a scene in his mind, but at this moment, he hesitated. Li Jianhua was so innocent, and he couldn't bear to hurt her. After a long time, he pinched her cheek and said faintly, "He is not what you see on the surface. Don't get too close to him in the future." Li Jianhua opened her mouth and wanted to defend Quan Jingyi, but when she saw Li Mosen's expression, she silently swallowed the words in her throat. Li Mosen stood up and turned around. "I'm going to take a shower and go to bed. You can go back." Li Jianhua nodded obediently and said, "Brother Mosen, you must remember to finish your supper." "Yes." Back in her room, Li Jianhua took off her shoes and laid on the bed. She stared at the ceiling and exhaled deeply. She was thinking about how to explain to Li Mosen in the future so that he wouldn't hate Quan Jingyi. Just then, the phone on the table vibrated. She turned over and took the phone. When she opened it, she saw that it was a message from Quan Jingyi. "Quan Jingyi, let's go together after school tomorrow." Li Jianhua blinked and replied, "I always go home with Brother Mosen." The message was sent, but the other side did not reply for a long time. Just as Li Jianhua was about to put it down, Quan Jingyi sent another message, "It's okay. See you tomorrow." Then, he sent another photo. It was a photo of her wearing a Pikachu toy suit today. She held the Pikachu headgear with both hands, and the smile on her fair and lovely face was especially bright. Under Quan Jingyi's brush, her eyes were filled with warm and clear light, making the whole picture become beautiful. This painting was many times better than the ones that Quan Jingyi had sent her before. Chapter 2265. Romance Chinese Network. The latest chapter of the 99th divorce was updated as soon as possible. Li Jianhua was as happy as a child. She quickly replied, "You're amazing. You drew me so beautifully." "Quan Jingyi, it's normal." Li Jianhua laughed and said in a low voice, "Shameless." But when she saw the painting, well, it was beautiful. Li Jianhua smiled and typed a few words, "See you tomorrow." The next day, Li Jianhua rushed to school as usual. Quan Jingyi's seat was still empty. The bell rang and the teacher entered the class with his books. Li Jianhua secretly took out her phone and opened Quan Jingyi's WeChat. Just as she was about to send him a message to ask why he didn't come, a voice came from the door. At the door of the classroom, Quan Jingyi stood there with his school bag on his shoulder. The math teacher looked back at him and said indifferently, "Next time you come late, you will stand outside and listen to the class." Quan Jingyi ignored him and walked over with his school bag. On the podium, the math teacher had already started teaching. Li Jianhua took out her math book and opened it. Quan Jingyi, who was next to her, also sat down. Then, a small wooden box was placed on top of her book. Li Jianhua looked back at him in surprise. Quan Jingyi said lazily, "Try it." Li Jianhua blinked. "You made it?" There was no answer, as if he had acquiesced. She glanced at the teacher on the podium and secretly opened the wooden box. When she saw the exquisite candy and cookies placed inside, Li Jianrui's eyes widened in surprise. The cookies were easier to bake, but she didn't know how he made these exquisite and delicious candy. Li Jianrui couldn't believe that Quan Jingyi made all these. What couldn't he do? Just as she was about to raise her head to speak, Quan Jingyi reached out and stuffed a candy into her mouth. Li Jianrui quickly lowered her head and secretly looked at the teacher like a thief. Quan Jingyi's low laughter came into her ears. Is it delicious? The sweetness of milk and fruit blended with each other in her mouth. Li Jianrui's cheeks were slightly red, and her heart was beating fast because of her guilty conscience. He was too bold. If the teacher found out, they would be dead. Li Jianrui covered her mouth with the book and whispered, "You're amazing. You even know how to make candy and cookies." Quan Jingyi lowered his eyes and said, "My mother taught me when I was very young." Li Jianrui had never heard him talk about his mother. She said sincerely, "Auntie is amazing." Quan Jingyi lowered his head, his expression unreadable. He murmured, "Yes, she is very powerful." Li Jian suddenly remembered that his mother seemed to have passed away when he was very young. In the afternoon, as the bell rang, the teacher walked out of the classroom with the lesson plans. Quan Jingyi grabbed both of their school bags, kicked his chair away, and walked out of the classroom as well. Li Jianrui was stunned for a moment and shouted, "Hey!" Such a scene attracted the attention of many people. Quan Jingyi walked lazily without looking back. "Let's go home." Quan Jingyi was tall and had long legs. He took 2 steps ahead of Li Jianrui. Li Jianrui was stared at by the surrounding students. Her face was a little hot. She trotted to catch up with him. Quan Jingyi probably thought that Li Jianrui was too slow, so he stopped in his tracks. Li Jianrui finally caught up with him. Just as she was about to take a breather, her hand was suddenly grabbed and she was pulled forward. Li Jianrui blinked and felt the temperature of the youth's palm. Her face was slightly hot. She wanted to pull her hand out, but looking at Quan Jingyi's undistracted look, she was afraid that her action would be too unnecessary. Chapter 2266. A large number of students rushed out of the school building to the gate. Not to mention how cool it was. Li Jianrui's face heated up. She thought about it and wanted to pull her hand back. However, Quan Jingyi held her tightly and said, "Keep up. You're walking too slowly." Li Jianrui thought that he was right. Compared to him, she was indeed walking a little slowly. So, she gave up struggling and asked, "Where are you taking me?" "We're going to have fun and eat delicious food." Hearing this, Li Jianrui's eyes instantly lit up. Delicious food? Or fun? Compared to the amusement park? Quan Jingyi laughed. "Have you only been to the amusement park? Is there anything else fun?" "There are many." Flash dance. Quan Jingyi pretended to be mysterious. Li Jianrui wanted to ask more. Suddenly, she saw a familiar figure standing beside the pillar at the school gate. Li Jianrui was stunned. She looked up and her eyes met Li Mosen's dark eyes. "Brother Mosen." Li Jianrui shouted naturally. When Quan Jingyi heard this, he raised his eyebrows and looked in the direction of her gaze. Li Mosen looked at the two of them with a complicated gaze. Then, his gaze fell on Quan Jingyi's hand that was holding hers. Their figures were covered and exposed by the crowd, and they looked like they were walking on the street. A pair of blue eyes looked at their intertwined hands and narrowed. Li Jianrui followed Li Mosen's gaze. As if she had been electrocuted, she shook off Quan Jingyi's hand the next moment. It was as if she had done something guilty. However, she had not done anything guilty. She had even promised Quan Jingyi to play, so she would not go home with him. She had already told Brother Mosen about this. This feeling of guilt was too strong. Li Jianrui was extremely annoyed. Just as she was hesitating about what to say, Li Mosen had already walked towards them. Li Jianrui looked up at Li Mosen. The little girl's face was regretful and conflicted. She said, "Ah. Brother Mosen, why are you here?" To pick you up. Li Mosen's eyes were gloomy. At this time, his voice also sounded cold. Go home. But. Before Li Jianyu could finish her sentence, Li Mosen grabbed her arm. Li Jianyu was pulled over, but before she could get close to Li Mosen, her other hand was held again. He turned around and saw Quan Jingyi with a faint smile on his face. Senior, classmate Li has already agreed to go with me. She has also told you about the situation, right? He did. However, he did not want to agree. Anyone could, but not Quan Jingyi. This male classmate was too aggressive. 16 or 17 years old were the easiest to be seduced by such a boy. How could he allow him to continue to commit crimes? Li Mosen retracted his gaze and said calmly, I did, but our house isn't in the same direction as yours, so I won't trouble you. Li Jianyu quickly said, Brother Mosen, I made an appointment with Quan Jingyi to go together. Li Mosen didn't even look at her. He interrupted her with a calm expression and reached out to Quan Jingyi. Classmate, your school bag. Quan Jingyi looked down at the school bag in his hand and raised his eyebrows. He raised his hand and casually threw the school bag over. He said teasingly, You will graduate next year. Can you still look at her for the rest of your life? The careless words were like a thorn, suddenly stabbing into the soft spot that Mosen had never dared to touch. He couldn't. You're tuning into the Biyao's Wuxia Chronicles YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.